We're good?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay, excellent. So hello, everyone. Welcome to session 1 of stream 3. My name is Angela Beeking. I work at Library and Archives Canada as a digital archivist, and it is my pleasure and my honor to be here with you introducing these wonderful finalists for the Digital Preservation Awards. So just to make sure everybody's in the right stream, this is the stream where we'll be hearing from finalists in the digital legacy and commerce industry and third sector categories. So if you happen to be in the wrong session, you can do a shuffle. But as William mentioned, this is an exciting stream. I'm really looking forward to hearing from the speakers. This is the stream where we'll chat about getting on and doing the digital preservation work. So I'll be keeping time for our presenters. If things are going over time, you might hear a little ping of a little bell. I'm not sure how loud that comes through on speakers. I apologize if it's a bit too loud. But yes, there's also collaborative notes, so you're welcome to refer to those or to add to them as we go through. Oh, excellent, Natalie, we hear it well, not too loud. So I've picked the right noise device for timekeeping. Excellent. Okay, so we'll head right on. Our first award is the TNA Award for Safeguarding the Digital Legacy. So just to give a little bit more detail about the award. This award celebrates the practical application of preservation skills and tools to protect at-risk digital objects. So it draws attention to concrete efforts to ensure important elements of our generation's digital memory remains available to future generations. So it doesn't need to involve particularly innovative work, but it must illustrate a clear understanding of the risks that digital objects face and the reasons for ensuring that they are properly managed. So it should be an exemplar case study in why preservation matters, and it must be capable of being described in terms that are readily understood. So for the TNA Award for Safeguarding the Digital Legacy, we're going to hear from our finalists. First up is Maria Jose Loret Alcañez. So, and we have a recording from Maria Jose, and also she's here to chat with us. So I will hand it over to you.
Thank you. Good morning, good evening, everyone. I will share my screen now. Can you see the slide?
Yeah.
I work at the United Nations Library at Geneva, and in my current role of Digital Preservation Manager, I wish to introduce our project Preserving the League of Nations Digital Archives. After a short introduction to the archives, I will review the project, the challenges, the solution, the outcome, and the future. The League of Nations Archives consists of almost 3 kilometers of documents dating from 1919 to 1946. Their international importance has been acknowledged by UNESCO with their inscription on the Memory of the World Register. This is an extremely fragile material. In 2017, with the support of a Geneva private foundation, we launched a 5-year project called Total Digital Access to the League of Nations Archives, with the objectives to digitize the content and provide online access and to ensure the physical and digital preservation of the archives. We had to overcome several challenges concerning the digital preservation and access. Since no digital preservation system was available in our organization, a significant advocacy effort was required to promote the project to the senior management. The amount of expected data is huge. We have estimated a total of 250 terabytes and more than 15 million files. Last but not least, a significant improvement was expected in the data access because the old catalog installed in 2003 was difficult to use. In 2019, we implemented a cloud solution based on Preservica Enterprise Private Cloud System. But then the scanning operations had already produced millions of files that we were keeping in local shared drives. And it was clear that we need to automate the ingest process. We have used Preservica APIs for the submission of data. We have included in the package the descriptive metadata that we have exported from the catalog. We have also minimized the long-term storage cost. Access copies are stored in low latency Amazon Web Services S3 for immediate access, while preservation copies are stored in low-cost Glacier. The outcome of the project: 110 terabytes of data were ingested in 6 months thanks to the complete automation of the workflow, and it is going now. The structure of the archives catalog has been maintained. The OCR embedded into PDF documents will facilitate the search and discovery for the users. Ingested data immediately is available for researchers for the moment through the Preservica portal. What we plan to do next: implement a new archives management system that will be synchronized with Preservica for metadata updates, and develop our own access portal directly connected to Preservica. And all this to achieve the final goal: strengthen multilateral diplomacy and international relations by ensuring access to the archives for current and next generations of researchers from all over the world. Thank you.
Wonderful.
Have any question?
Yes, can we have a virtual round of applause for this wonderful, wonderful effort? Seeing all the applause. Thank you for your presentation. So first, we'll just check in with Jen. Is there any, or are there any questions in the chat box?
No, we've not had any questions in chat, but people can feel free to unmute their microphones and just ask outright if they have any questions. We're quite a small group in this stream, so do feel free to unmute.
I have one question. My name
Great.
is George Mikuchadze. I'm Georgian Scientific Library. Thank you very much, Maria. It's very interesting because we are doing the same jobs in a scientific, or try to do in a scientific library. We make digital copies of this, our old magazines and journals in Georgia from 1990 to 1939. And you mentioned that during 6 months you have generated approximately 100 and more terabytes data. How many people worked on this project to produce, and what kind of scanners or copiers you used for this reason?
Well, the digitization project is one part, but we are talking about digital preservation, and in fact, it's only me and engineers.
Only you?
And people from Preservica, which are helping us. So we automate completely the process. This is, we couldn't use the manual ingest. So that's the beauty of the thing. By automation of the process and the workflows, we are ingesting 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and this is going very well.
Excellent. Preservica, it's this English company which produce such kind of works for around the world, isn't it? It's English company, United Kingdom company, isn't it? Preservica.
Well, I'm not going to do any publicity for them.
Okay.
But I think it's in the England, yeah, and also in the States, yeah.
Thanks. I wish you all success. Thank you very much.
We have one other minute if there's any other questions before we.
Yeah, so there's a question from Melinda Hornton from the National Archives in the United Kingdom. And she asks, what do you want to get from a new AMS to take this forward? So AMS is Archive Management System.
Yes, this is because we have a very old archive management system where we do the cataloging. So the metadata is entered in the archives management system. And we are going to replace it and synchronize with Preservica for metadata updates in the digital preservation part.
Great, thank you. That was a very succinct answer, which is great from Angela's perspective. The timekeeping, I would guess. I'll hand back to Angela.
It was perfect. So thank you so much for that presentation and for all of your work. I agree with what I saw in the chat box, the amazing numbers. It's wonderful. So now we have our second group of presenters. Welcome to Ian Cook, Nicola Bingham from the UK Web Archive. The British Library, about the UK Web Archive.
We're the UK Web Archive for this, based at the British Library. Brilliant, thank you. So yeah, it's a real privilege for us to join the finalists for Safeguarding the Digital Legacy Award. And it's fantastic to be in such good company alongside the Preservation of the League of Nations Digital Archive we've just heard about, and the Amplifying Change project. So this year, the UK Web Archive celebrates its 15-year anniversary. And anniversaries are important because they offer us a point to look back, to give us a longer term perspective on our work, but also because they prompt us to think about our values as well as our legacy. So thinking about our values, preservation and legacy, I want to talk about three things that we're really proud of. Firstly, we've always stressed that the content matters, and this has led us in everything else. So communication on the web is primarily about the people and the communities that we share our lives with. And preservation of the web matters because it's vital to how we understand ourselves now and how we understand our recent past. So from our beginnings, we've made the case that the web is not trivial, it should be valued, and we continue to make that case. Being led by content can result in complex and innovative technological interventions, such as how we work through the continued monitoring and refinement of our domain crawls to ensure we're as comprehensive as we can be. But it's also about making sure we understand the content and the people creating it. And I was thinking very much back to the session we've just heard there. So we also reach out to communities and groups to help create collections. And this leads to my second point. We work collaboratively. And this has been at the heart of the UK Web Archive, which has always existed as a collaborative venture between organisations. And now we link up the 6 legal deposit libraries of the UK. Collaboration is vital to build and maintain the capacity that all organisations active in web archiving need to meet the preservation challenges presented by the live web. And a key part of this has been the International Internet Preservation Consortium, where we're proud to be the host for the Programme and Communications Officer. We participate in conferences and workshops, and we regularly take part in the open hours supporting open source calls, which support the IIPC's open source initiatives. We partner also with researchers to help us understand their real life challenges and to inspire the way we build our services and we communicate about them. And lastly, we're proud that we work openly. We see access as a vital part of our preservation work. We seek permissions to make selected archive web content openly available, and we look to use existing licenses to make other content available. We also make sure that the data we generate about our collections can be used, whether that's full text indexes that can be searched in our user interface, or the data sets that we've generated from earlier crawls of the UK domain. So looking back over our 15-year history, these are three of the things that make us proud, and they continue to inspire us. Understanding the value of our collections, working in partnership, and connecting our users and public with our collections. These are values we know we share with the wider digital preservation community. So we're really grateful for this chance to join the celebrations today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ian. So maybe have a round of applause for the UK Web Archive and Ian's presentation. Wonderful. So thank you. So questions, let's have a check-in. I don't think there's anything in the chat box yet, Jen.
No, there's nothing in the chat, but do feel free to shout up if you have a question for Ian and colleagues.
Okay, well.
I had one actually. Is that all right, Angela?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I was just going to ask about how whether you've noticed much that the use of the Web Archive has changed over the 15 years that you've been going, and whether people are using it in quite different ways now to the kind of the original uses that you would have seen like 10, 15 years ago.
I think, and I'll kind of, I don't know if Nicola wants to kind of join in on this as well. There's starting to be a change. So the kind of use that we've supported from the beginning, I think, is that kind of close reading of the archive web. So it's sort of building quite small corpuses and then kind of analysing them almost kind of like qualitatively at a website or a web page level. And what's changing is added to that is an interest in more kind of analytical and kind of computational science approaches, which is a challenge for us as well in terms of kind of how we support that. But we're starting to see that kind of request for kind of support and working with us as well. And it's something we want to explore more over the next year or so, is sort of how we best support that. But the close reading, I think, is still definitely there. And also the kind of building collections with us, I think, is still very much there, and still very much kind of something that researchers want to do with us.
Yes, I would support that, Ian. I think the use of the Web Archive has also changed because of our collecting mandate over the years. So initially in the early years, without the support of the non-print legal deposit regulations, we were quite a small scale selective operation. So our collection was thematic, and we only archived websites in the numbers of the thousands on an annual basis. And since 2013, with the non-print legal deposit legislation, we're able to curate the UK web domain as a whole, which has allowed researchers to look at the web in a more computational, big data way. But we still do get a thrill when the user contacts us and they're looking for a document that they can't find on the live web anymore, and the only copy is in the archive. So yes, we do support a wide range of users.
That's the best thrill, isn't it?
Yes.
Wonderful to get that kind of call. All right, thank you so much to you both.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so next up we have Anya Mahler from the Digital Repository of Ireland, and she's going to chat with us about the Atlantic Philanthropies.
Hey there. I'm very excited to be here today among so many great projects, and I hope you can hear me all well. Let me just share my screen with you. 1 second. And blow this up.
Yeah, the sound is great.
Thank you. Yeah, let me introduce you to the Amplify and Change, the history of Atlantic Philanthropies on the island of Ireland. And I'd like to begin with my project team, which are Bláthnaí Cathan, the oral historian and historical researcher, Phoebe Lynn Kowalewski, the Atlantic Philanthropies archivist at Cornell, and myself. So for those of you who don't know, the Digital Repository is a trusted digital repository here in Dublin and Ireland. Cornell University's rare manuscript collections are based in Ithaca, New York, and their recent donation houses the entire archives of the Atlantic Philanthropies. And Atlantic is a philanthropic organization dedicated to advancing opportunity, equity, and human dignity. I should say there was, because last week they closed their doors. They were established in 1982 when Chuck Feeney quietly committed his accumulated wealth to the foundation. A few years before the closure, Atlantic wanted to make sure that the archives and the stories and lessons contained in those archives could be of benefit to researchers, as well as potential philanthropists considering investing in the island of Ireland. The DRI was approached to play a key role in disseminating these archives and explore the impact of achievements by Atlantic grantees. So over 30 years, Atlantic invested 1.6 billion in Ireland and Northern Ireland to advance higher education, human rights, further the peace process, and improve services and policies for young people and senior citizens. Chuck Feeney once said, use your wealth to help people, use your wealth to create institutions to help people. If it comes down to it, it's always people. And his emphasis on people is what inspired us to create this online archive in the way we have. We realized that while anyone can see from a Google search what Atlantic has achieved, the resources we made accessible here for everyone to see provide a more intimate view of the societal issues that Atlantic sought to improve, and most importantly, the thought processes that made these improvements happen. The notion that longevity and utility are threatened where contents and context are lost was key for us when creating these collections. Alongside working with Cornell on digitizing and creating business records, DRI has collected oral histories that provide personal insights and stories from the people who have been involved. Gaining unique access to records in Cornell early on has allowed us to study these grant files of these non-governmental, non-for-profit and charitable organizations. These grant files reveal the entire life cycle of Atlantic grants, from proposals to grant recommendations to final reports and rich ephemera. This was a crucial insight for us to find these stories and select the business records. In entwining these documents and stories through rich metadata, we seek to enable discovery. We are hoping this archive will be a resource for those researching social, historical, and economical change, or be informative and inspire how to bring about such change. In this archive, you can listen to the advocate for migrants, who highlights the importance of independent funding, or the specialist in conflict resolution on how their work was supported. You can listen to the author of the research report called Visible Lives and highlighted the needs for the older LGBTQ community and read it. Or look at the groundwork behind Island Citizen Assembly, and there's much more such great examples. We covered about 30% of investment grants on the island, and we spread them evenly across issues, periods, and geographical locations. And I'd like to invite you to experience this archive. To me personally, it has acted as a catalyst to realize the sheer amount of combined energy that is needed to bring about societal change. It has made me appreciate the human rights we have and realize how vulnerable equality is. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Yes, definitely a round of applause for Anya. Thank you so much. Just looking in the chat, I don't think we have questions in the chat, but we have time for perhaps one question. We have time for a question. Is there anyone who had one? Like to turn on their mic, or just checking?
Just a bit of praise in the chat for your website, Anya.
Thank you.
And I was lucky enough to be at your launch event last week. I think it was last week.
Oh, great. Yeah, so you heard the speakers detailing.
Yeah, so it was great to be there and hear that. Oh, we have a question now from Melinda at the National Archives UK. She says, how did you approach the oral histories in terms of digital capture?
Oh, so we actually recorded onto a device straight on SD card, and then I would take the SD card and move the content with fixity from it. As for the format, we were using WAV format, and we were, it was tricky in the beginning for us a little bit because we had multiple people collecting all the histories for us, and later on we moved to just like one oral historian. So we our format was based on the Library of Congress format specifications for that.
Great, thanks, Anya. Yeah, I think that's it for questions in the chat.
So I'm just keeping an eye on our time. So I just wanted to say thank you to all of our finalists in the award for Safeguarding the Digital Legacy. I think there are some incredible projects here for us all to think about, and yeah, it's wonderful. Oh, sorry, I'm just reading Melinda's comment. So thank you to everyone. So now we have the excitement of hearing from the finalists for the DPC Award for the Most Outstanding Digital Preservation Initiative in Commerce, Industry, and the Third Sector. So this one, the judges acknowledge that digital preservation is a concern for all, and are concerned that case studies of good practice from commercial or industrial settings, as well as charities and nonprofits, can be quite rare. So such agencies are not generally motivated to share their experiences, while activities that may seem relatively mundane can have a profound impact on creating and extending new kinds of business or new kinds of interactions between stakeholders. So as an example, the exploitation of big data has driven innovation in the economy, while the clever deployment of legacy digital assets has opened up a long tail of commerce. Regulators concerned with lifecycle management of real-world assets recognize the need for digital preservation as hard evidence of compliance, while patent lawyers protect their clients with the presentation of authoritative evidence of novelty. So, and as well, non-governmental agencies and charities collect and preserve archives from their clients and stakeholders, acting in some cases as the archive of last resort where none other exists. So these and other innovations require practical preservation measures to be sustainable. And the judges wish to celebrate these activities and show that digital preservation is not merely a concern for public institutions. So this is quite exciting. We will hear from our finalists. starting with Fiona Bourne from the Royal College of Nursing. Hi, Fiona, and
Hi there.
perfect.
Okay.
So yes, we'll hear from you about your work for a new way of sharing nursing history.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Fiona Bourne, the Archive Manager at the Royal College of Nursing. As you can imagine from the intro, the RCN is not a heritage organisation. We're actually a trade union and professional association for nurses and healthcare workers from across the UK, and we have over 450,000 members. We're really delighted that our project's been considered amongst such high quality competitors, so thank you very much for this opportunity to speak to you all today. We've had the preservation software Preservica since 2017, so not very long, but we've been very hard at work making what we can public on a digital archive webpage. It's freely accessible, but the only public corporate records online are actually annual reports. Useful, but not very detailed, not detailed enough to satisfy transparency. There's a great need in membership-funded organisations like ourselves to demonstrate that we are genuinely member-led. Our recent project is not just about sharing records, it's also about how we manage access while respecting data protection. Our members are the decision makers for the organisation, but they're also trade union members and we must respect their privacy. Records of trade union meetings could be distributed directly to each member, but it's so much more useful, cheaper and quicker to have a comprehensive online resource covering decades of nursing issues and achievements that they can look back on. So looking around the archive sector for answer to our dilemma as to how to do this, we found a lot of people like ourselves struggling to differentiate levels of appropriate access to records for a variety of reasons. Digital access expectations are really high. If you can access it, you should be able to access it, but that's neither advisable nor legal. So we decided to create a second virtually identical digital archive website, but this time we'd set it behind a member login. The member login works by verifying an individual's membership credentials with our highly secure membership database. Those don't exchange any data. The membership database merely says yes or no to our website, which then logs the member in. That means that our archive team don't have to risk data security breaches or maintain any encrypted records. The Member Digital Archive website works by labeling appropriate records in the digital archive as being available for member access. This sends an image of the record to the member site only and not the public one. We continually strive to improve the look, content and functionality of both sites as we take our public profile very seriously, and we aim to provide the right services to the right audiences rather than prioritising or denying either one of them. With these two factors in place, we could deliver data to the right audience. This is something which could be done with other groups, for example, students using something like Shibboleth, like a different login system. So we wanted to share what we'd done with everyone else. No archive wants to give logins to 450,000 individual members and then try to maintain accurate personal data for them. I don't think anybody has enough time for that. So we think that this is a possible solution, not just for us, and we hope that you do too. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Fiona. A round of virtual applause for these efforts with the Royal College of Nursing website. So sorry, Melinda. I was like, I see actual hands clapping. Thank you. Isn't that exciting? All right. So I don't see any questions in the chat yet, but were there any from anyone on the floor? Oh.
I do love your comment on being the archive of last resort. I've enjoyed that.
Yeah. Well, I do have to say something that, and a question from me, I suppose, or maybe a reaction is that this is something that heritage institutions are concerned with as well. And there's probably a lot for us to learn from the third sector in this, because heritage institutions are also very concerned with access levels and how to sort of simplify that process as much as we can, even though it is very complicated. So if there's no one else has a question, I'm interested in knowing sort of how you did that with the login credentials to make it a positive user experience so that they wouldn't have to authenticate multiple times. And I wondered if you could speak to what it's like to use the the archive?
There are several other resources on the RCN's main website which actually use this login system. So we just piggybacked on that and included ours in it. So hopefully you'll be able to travel between the different online resources as a member without having to redo your login a lot of the time. But one of the things that we liked about the SAML access method was that it didn't exchange data. Which is very important for us because obviously when you're a very small archive team in a non-heritage organisation, you don't get a lot of attention or funding. And if you suddenly stand up and say, I want to have secure member data in our files, please, everyone turns around and says, no, it's simply not going to happen. So it's very important for us to be able to say this is completely safe, run it past the data protection officer and actually get the go ahead to actually do things like this, because otherwise we wouldn't be able to share so much with anybody really. It's very, very important to us that the organization sees us as enabling.
Wonderful.
We do have a question in the chat now from Brian Pickering, who asks, how do you secure the data sent to the user's terminal?
Well, you can view it online, but it isn't downloadable. So I suppose you could do screenshots and things like that, but you can't actually take the data. A lot of it at the moment is actually in the form of film and audio recordings, because we do actually record the whole process of our annual Congress meetings and annual general meetings. And I think most people quite enjoy just watching those online at the moment, thankfully.
Great, thank you. I think your aim to provide the right services to the right audiences at the right time is one that's a challenge that I think most people in this room will share.
Yes, I'm sure. Yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay. So our next presenter is Patricia Sleeman. So Patricia from the UN High Commission for Refugees, who will talk to us about the records and archives.
So I pre-recorded my presentation in fear of the 3 minute, so I got it down to 3 minutes. So welcome to UNHCR's presentation for the Digital Preservation Awards 2020. Question: if you had to flee with your life from your home, what would you bring with you?
Empty.
Wallet.
Money.
Coins.
Pennies. Torch. Whistle. Laser pointer.
Seen more clearly out at sea. 3 bags.
1 bag.
Rucksack.
Trunk.
Yellow plastic bag for papers, sellotape till waterproof.
And yellow cards for refugees.
And national ID.
Army service record.
And an information booklet from the government.
Diploma, electronics.
Certificate from high school.
Passport, if you've got one, you can take.
Expensive one-way ticket.
Fake.
Flag.
National flag.
Flash drive, laptop, phone.
Mobile.
Phone number.
SIM card.
Spare one.
Phone.
Smartphone with Skype and FaceTime.
Headphones.
Charger.
Overseas adapter.
House keys. House keys.
We have suffered so much. I want to study so that I can become someone again.
Welcome to UNHCR. Step inside our world of 70.8 million refugees, a staff of 17,000 working in some of the most dangerous places in the world. All these numbers you see can numb you. Don't let them. Archives and why they matter to UNHCR. History is often told by the victor. UNHCR saves the voice of the victim. Digital preservation is the only way to continue the protection of this story and memory. The challenge for UNHCR archives is to justify expenditure in digital preservation versus life-saving measures such as the Plum Peanut High Nutrition Bar, which saves lives. What would you do? How would you do this? My first mission was to Lebanon, in registration centres where I witnessed misery on a scale I had never seen. Nothing prepared me for what I saw, and I realised I had to adapt my digital preservation strategies to be relevant in a large humanitarian organisation. How do we do it? while collaboration is key with our external partners, internally within our own records and archives section, within our own divisions, and with our global operation. Our main achievements: 20 years of an electronic documents records management system, 7 years of cataloguing and describing digital information, giving access to it, 4 years of web archiving digital preservation solutions with a modest budget and a small team with innovation. Thank you. We stand with refugees.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Patricia. I'm just going to see. There are. Yes, a round of applause, please, for Patricia. This is a wonderful. Yes.
That was brilliant, Patricia.
Yeah,
That was
I'm
really,
quite-
very moving.
Yeah.
We're all stunned, I think.
Yeah.
It was really, really good.
Terribly, terribly nervous. Even if I pre-recorded it, that's why I pre-recorded it. Thank you.
Don't get nervous. It's fantastic work. Does anyone have any questions for Patricia?
Please.
Or any answers even?
Yeah. I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot, and I have lots of people I want to ask questions to after this. Yeah.
I just had a question just around kind of what the range of types of material that you have to preserve.
That's a very interesting question. So the first thing I did when I joined UNHCR is I didn't know the organization and I didn't know the contents. I did a survey around the house, and I obviously went on mission to understand what the content was. And it's as varied as, well, currently I'm working on a very big video project, about 200 terabytes, to our EDRMS, coupled with Office 365. I'm working on maps. I'm working on social media. That's a lot of what we're working on right now. And our web archive is a huge component of what we're doing. Everything that is designated as long-term and permanent, we will be looking at it. One of the things we've just worked out is how to preserve and make accessible again is an online video game, because of FlashPower being made redundant. And we are a very, very small team. Until recently I was 1, and now we have 2, and we borrow people who are roaming, technical expertise from the field. And I'm very fortunate that I work with some great people and a great community who have really supported me. Yeah.
Wow. Well, thank you. That's incredible. I mean, we struggle with how to do video games and things like that. And
yeah.
Yeah.
Another discussion. Something. Yeah. Happy to talk more.
Sorry, Patricia. There's a question in chat from, I think, is it Tangai? Asking, is UNHCR cooperating with other organisations, especially in the UN, to set up digital preservation service solutions?
A great question.
UN, yes.
A great question. Where Maria Jose is here, and of course you're here. Thank you. Initially, when I started, I thought this is the way to go. We obviously talk to each other, and we have an organization of international organizations in Geneva, which I think Montserrat set up, the chief of our section, who's very visionary about what we're doing. Ideally, I would love that to be the case, that we work together and we have a shared cloud and we have a shared. We are cooperating, yes, but we are not sharing systems. It's clearly different projects, different budgets, very different. Yeah. Who decides which data is preserved? That is a very good question. Until now, it has been me, Montserrat, and Heather, and Hilda, head of reference, the chief of section, and Hilda, the records manager, comes in. One of the biggest challenges to UNHCR is getting the material, because once a new operation starts, people are like, well, forget that, and they move on quickly. So working with people in the field is very important. Getting information from them. And now we have in our strategy to set up a house-wide committee of more than just us to choose and decide, to raise awareness, because it's very, very important that everybody's aware of this. And just getting this nomination has really helped. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. I just want to say thank you to all of our presenters. This has been wonderful. We do have a little bit more time for a couple more questions for anyone, really. If there was anything else anyone wanted to ask. Yes, Steph, I agree. Blown away by the presentations. There's some wonderful, wonderful work happening in these two categories. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's always great and exciting to see the nominations of the finalists coming out for the Digital Preservation Awards and getting a sense of all this fantastic work that's going on, and getting the chance to get a real insight into what's going on. Celebrating successes is what it's all about, and it's wonderful to see. So thank you, everybody.
Well, we do have one more question for Fiona. Were there any additional charges by Preservica for setting up the second access interface?
Hi. No, they didn't. Although it was the first time they'd done it, so I'm not entirely sure that they wouldn't do charging in the future. But they didn't do the majority of the work in that sense. What they did was with the public UA site, the module that takes the information from the digital archive, it recognises public tags. And what they did was they set one up for us that recognised member tags as well as public tags. So other than that, there wasn't a vast amount they did. The rest of it was about set up in the RCN. So hopefully, if they did do that work again with somebody, it wouldn't be very much.
It does speak to a nice bit of collaborative work between yourselves, Preservica, and your IT department, like everybody working together on the same thing. Okay, all right. Looking at the time, we have just a touch more time, but we could also end a little bit early if there weren't any other questions. I'm just checking if I had some questions. One for the folks with the UK Web Archive. I'm just wondering what's next for the UK Web Archive. Just a curiosity on my part.
Oh wow. Well, kind of right now it's running the domain crawl for the 2020. So we've got that set up, and we're starting to see how we manage that this year. So that's very much on our minds. I think we're really interested in kind of how we support curation within the Web Archive. So kind of description and collection building, and sort of doing it in a way that means that people who then can use the collections for research can be confident in their use. So they've got the information that they need there to do it. We will kind of have a really interesting conference at the start of the week, engaging with Web Archives, which was kind of like, you know, kind of the need for a curator to be on hand almost. And so it's like, how do you kind of support that at more scale is one of the questions. And kind of how we deal with more complex material on the web as well. So thinking about different kind of technologies and tools for web archiving, particularly kind of more dynamic things that have always been very hard to collect, how we manage those. Yeah, I'll hand over to Nicola. and any other thoughts as well on what's next?
That sounds like a good chunk of work.
Yeah, we're never without challenges, and also sort of thinking about how we engage with research as well, and kind of what I think comes back to kind of the conversation we had earlier about kind of what the next kind of research needs to be and how we support that.
Yeah, absolutely, very interesting. All right, well, I think we're short on time. I want to thank all of our presenters, our wonderful finalists for these 2 awards. It's been wonderful hearing from you, learning about your fantastic work. Thank you to my co-chair Jen, and thank you to Angela, my tech lead. It's been great. So I wonder if we could, anyone who would like to turn their camera on and just give a round of applause with a face for all of our presenters. There's everybody in the room. Great.
Real thumbs up.
Yeah, real thumbs up, exactly. So what's coming next? We have another break, and then the next session will start in 15 minutes. We have the 3 streams. And I think, Angela, will you put the URLs for the streams into the chat?
Yes,
Yeah,
they are in the chat. Yes. Yeah.
Oh, they're right in front of me. I'm looking right at them. I'm not seeing them. This is great. So yes, stream 1, 2, and 3. If you are interested in stream 3, we just stay right here. Otherwise, enjoy the other streams you're heading off to, and have a great WeMiss iPress. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Thanks, Angela. Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Thank you.
Looks like I'm up next. Hopefully everyone's here. Let's see. Are all my presenters here for this next stream?
Hi, Tina.
Hello. Thank you, thank you.
I think my co-presenters are here as well. Let's see.
My co-chair, Tracy, are you here? Angela.
Angela.
Hi.
Hey, Angela.
Is there another Angela again?
Well, Angela Puglioni?
Yes.
Yes. How do I pronounce the last names?
I think that's right. Mine is Beeking.
It is Beeking? Okay. Because you're one of my questions too. I just wanted to go through, is Jefferson Bailey here? Ooh, okay. We'll give it a bit. Angela Beeking, and is it Tom Smith or Smythe?
Hi, it's Smythe.
It is Smythe, okay. Patricia Klumbauer?
Yeah, close to Klambauer, yeah.
Klambauer, okay.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Kevin Pellendat?
All of the really tough names in this session. It's actually Pelenda. The T is silent.
Pelenda?
Yeah.
Okay.
You got it.
Pelenda. All right. All right. And that's the Library and Archives Canada, right? That's everybody with that group?
Yeah.
Okay. Excellent. Minlu? Minglu, is it Wang or Wang?
Wang, yes.
It is Wang?
Minglu Wang, yeah, thank you.
Thank you. And Claudia Engelhardt? Irina Kushma? People have been joining, so I'm not sure. And let me know if these are pronounced, if I'm pronouncing the names incorrectly, please. Catherine McNeil, Claudia Bauza Medeiros.
Right, that's all from our group of presenters. I will be the presenter, but I think I will be the speaker. Yeah.
Okay, great.
And
that was going to be my other question. I mean, how many people are going to be presenting? Who should I speak? Say the name. So, okay. Will you be saying everyone's name, Minglu Wang?
Yes, I will. I will acknowledge them in my presentation. Yeah.
Okay. And so, I would just say Minglu Wang in the title of your presentation. So, all right.
Okay. I can introduce
Jefferson Bailey is here. Yay. Thank you.
Hello, I'm here. Yep.
And Angela Beeking? And your whole group is going to present?
Yes.
Yay. All right, and so Klambauer, Kevin Pelenda.
Yes, I was going to say I have the PowerPoint on my laptop, so I'll be working the PowerPoint, but I'll be speaking as well. But we're all going to be speaking. Yeah.
Okay, and Jefferson, is your PowerPoint up and everything's ready? And because I think you're up first. And then
I'm just gonna share screen. I got Google Slides or whatever.
Okay, and just so that we can stay on time, because I think we have what, 8 minutes. I guess what, a 7-minute timer. I don't have a bell to ring, so but I have this. Let me know if you can hear this. No?
No.
No.
Okay, how about bell? 1 moment, 1 minute.
That works.
Okay, so we have bell, 1 minute. It's all about improvising, right? So, and that'll be at the 7-minute, 1 minute timer, and then again at the 1 minute. So we should be hopefully okay. Everyone's got their PowerPoint and ready for us to, but is Tracy here?
I am here. Hello.
Tracy, how are you?
All right, how are you?
Yeah, I'm doing great, thank you.
Great.
And Tracy is my co-chair. So you'll keep track of all the chat questions and comments and all of that wonderful stuff. And
I will do my best.
Excellent, because I'm going to keep the timing. And sometimes I'm like this, all up into the presentation. And I'm like, oh, wait, it's 15 minutes, sorry. So I'll do my best. I certainly will try. So, and Angela Pugione.
Hello, Tina.
Am I saying your name wrong?
No, that was perfect. Yeah, in one go.
She's my tech leak, so I'm like, ah. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I'm trying to, if there's anything else I'm supposed to be saying. Anybody else have any questions?
Yeah, I do. Could I just, I'd just like to try to share my screen now, because I've never had to share a screen on Zoom. So I'm just going to try that.
Perfect time to practice.
So share screen. Mm-hmm. Oh, okay.
Choose the right screen, because it's a, if you're like me, you got 27 windows open.
So there, do you guys see it now? Or, okay. Now how do I get out of here? Let's see, stop share. Got it. Okay, I think that's good. Thanks.
Thank you. All right. And I'll probably be fluttering in and out. It's not my internet, it's me. I don't like to be on video, so I'm like, I'm out. I'll be back. Be back when I should be. And yeah, and you know, it's funny. It's like I had a bell, but you get to a certain point where like, wait, I have like way too much stuff, and then I'm giving stuff away. I'm like, I don't really need to dust this bell anymore. You know, give it to someone else to dust.
You could always use like a glass, you know, like they do at weddings, you know, like.
Oh yes, and tap, yeah.
Yeah, you could always use that.
And I'm like, can you hear this? Oh wait, I have plastic. I'm drinking water out of a bottle and not even out of my container.
Yeah.
So where's everyone, like what city, state, country? I'm in Tucson, Arizona. It's in the morning, sunny.
I'm in the Netherlands and it's 7 o'clock at night here.
Ah, 7 o'clock at night. Listen, that's when I usually start waking up. I'm not really a morning person. It's only what, 10 o'clock here, and I'm like, oh great. But
we're in Ottawa, Canada, so it's 1 o'clock here, and it's a beautiful fall day. It's just gorgeous out, like balmy. Not probably not as hot as Arizona, of course, but. Well, actually, it depends because there's some higher elevations in Arizona, where it can be cooler.
Yes, in the mountains, definitely. Which is why I'm not in the mountains. I'm in the valley.
Like the heat.
I prefer the heat. Yes, I did not move to Arizona to freeze. So yeah, no.
I'm not looking forward to winter at all. It's been so nice to be able to get out for walks and enjoy the outdoors, but you know, we'll get -30, -40 Celsius. So it's I tend not to like to go anywhere when it's that cold.
Because you have to sort of prepare yourself physically with everything and mentally. Yeah, I know this. I'm originally from Boston, so I know how it is to be cold. So
I do have a friend who lives in the far north of Canada. She's in the Eastern Arctic. And so like when she tells me about her winter, I realize how much I cannot complain. Because they have times when they physically can't leave their houses, or they would just freeze. So -50, near minus, like it's
no.
So
No.
not a big part.
I don't miss it. I do not miss cold weather.
We have similar reactions when we hear about the winters from people in Buffalo.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, they get a lot of snow there, eh, in Buffalo?
You know, you have Canadians on the call when we talk about snow and cold.
I'm hoping it's going to be a short winter. Sometimes we don't get snow till December in Ottawa. It's variable. And so if it's a short winter, you know, maybe we'll have snow for 4 months, you know, December till March or something. So
it was -3 here overnight.
April, you're still in Saskatchewan?
Yeah, it was -3 here overnight.
When?
It's
Not
cold.
recent.
Oh yeah, look at the scarf.
No way. Wait, where are you, April?
I am in a northern part of Canada in the middle. So if you know, you're Arizona, right? So if you go to North Dakota and you go straight north, like a million hours. Yeah. I'm in Saskatchewan, in northern Saskatchewan.
Saskatchewan. Okay.
Yeah.
No way. I'm thinking it's only September. It can't be cold.
Oh my God. My only saving grace is that last night I don't sleep very well and I was up in the middle of the night. And at this time of year, we get northern lights.
Oh, I haven't seen northern lights for ages.
Oh my gosh, I was up. I must look tired today because I was up for probably 2.5 hours watching. It was magical.
Oh,
it's psychedelic.
Yeah. Oh, wonderful.
Really nice.
That's nice. Now, mind you, when you say -3, that's Celsius, correct? Not Fahrenheit.
-3 Celsius. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. So it's just below zero. It's not.
Okay. Because I'm like, that's
Fahrenheit, which would be, I can't calculate.
I'm thinking Fahrenheit. So I'm like, whoa.
Yeah.
Probably like high 20s Fahrenheit. That's probably like 27 or 28 Fahrenheit.
Yeah.
She doesn't like it. She doesn't like it.
Still seems awfully cold for September.
Indeed.
Okay. High today is 97. Right now it's 86 Fahrenheit. Okay. So yeah, I did not move to Tucson to freeze. Oh man. It looks like we have 1 more minute. We have a lot of people here. That's exciting. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Okay.
Tina, you want me to get my slides going just for the sake of time?
You should hold off on
I think I'm first.
But yes, but did you try to make sure everything is working? I don't want to have your screen shared right now, but I do want to take a second to introduce you though, and then you can pop in. So yeah.
Okay, go for it.
It's 10:15. Well, it's 10:15 my time. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're from. Thank you so much for being here. Ready to get started. And I don't know if this is stream 3, session 2, stream 3. Best of digital preservation in 2020. Everybody's in the right spot, hopefully, yes. Thank you for being here. And I did let the presenters know that you will hear bell 1 minute because I don't have a bell to ring, but your presentations, I believe, are going to be for 8 minutes total, and you'll get the 7-minute bell reminder. But I am indeed joined here today for the tech is Angela Puccioni, and my co-chair is Tracy Pop. Thank you so much, because I'm going to need your help as we look for, hopefully we have lots of questions and comments in the chat box. That'll be wonderful for you to put that in, and we can follow up with one question after each presentation. And then at the end, we can even bring in some more questions. So I'm ready. Are you ready? Let's get started. For our first presenter is Jefferson Bailey, Internet Archive, Preserving the Global and Local Impact of COVID-19 through Collective Web Archiving.
All right, thank you. Let me share my screen. Can you see it?
I can.
Okay, I saw some nods. I'll press the presenting mode, and hopefully that will go full screen. So I'm going to go pretty quickly. Thanks. Good to see everyone at our virtual iPres. And obviously thanks to Tina and Tracy for doing the moderation for this session. Yep, I'm from Internet Archive. I'm going to talk about sort of all the institutions that we work with and provide services for, and what they're doing to preserve this unique historical moment of the pandemic through web archiving. So I'll go really fast through if you don't know who we are or what the context is. Internet Archive is a nonprofit digital library. We're the headquarters in San Francisco, but we're pretty much a distributed team. Archive.org is the website. There's the mission statement. I have not updated this slide to be on fire, which most of California has been lately, but you know, everybody's doing okay. People usually ask how much stuff we have, because we have a lot. For the web archive, we're somewhere in the 25 to 30 petabytes range, and somewhere in the 850 to 900 billion URLs. A URL is basically an individual document from the web, and then there's a whole bunch of other stuff. What do we collect? It's about 8 petabytes a year, about 30 terabytes a day, and about half of that is the web archive. We also provide a whole bunch of services that themselves, as part of that, collect about 2 petabytes a year, and have about 800 organizational users. So we basically organize some of our web archiving work that is not the Wayback Machine under these 2 umbrellas, one of which is Archive.it, which is a pretty widely used web archiving service that we do all the technical hosting for, and is used by plenty of folks on this call who will probably talk about some of their work within it. But I wanted to give an overview of what all our 700 to 800 institutional users of Archive.it are doing for COVID. There are some stats about the thing. So this is just some screenshots of what Archive.it looks like. It's archiveit.org. If you want to look at the access websites, you can search for COVID and stuff like that. That's what the web application looks like. Basically what happened in, once COVID hit, I think we all recognize this was a once in a century, or at least once in our lifetime type of event. We have lots of institutions collecting web materials via our services and working in partnership with us in many different capacities to preserve as much of the web as possible. And we knew that this was such a interesting event that had so many potential different ways it could be documented via web archiving that we should really try to do something special. So we launched this sort of special campaign to work with all our existing partners to just give them as much more data as they could take, as well as get a whole lot of institutions that hadn't been doing web archiving, maybe they're considering it, to start doing it. So for our COVID special archiving campaign, there's at least 175 to 200 organizations that are building COVID specific collections, over 250 of them. It's somewhere in the 40 to 50 terabyte total growth since March or April when this started. And we saw, not just because of COVID, but also because of work from home and many people being able to use our online applications and stuff more readily and at a greater scale, a 4 to 5x exponential growth in what people were collecting from the web, which was awesome. So when we're digging into those 250 collections from 200-ish organizations, there's the map. It's still very North America centric, but there's some amazing collections in Europe and Australia and New Zealand. And we're diligently working to try to get others or to do the collecting of other national content ourselves if we're not working directly with institutions located there. This is sort of the profile, the makeup of the organizations within this sort of collective COVID archiving. It's still very, very much university libraries and archives, but I mean, excellent representation of other institutions. National libraries, we're doing a lot with public libraries. So we obviously work pretty much only with heritage, memory, nonprofits, social good organizations, but this is a really interesting sort of profile of who's doing the collecting. Some stats, I mentioned a couple of these. You know, we're approaching 200 institutional users, and there are about 250 collections. A lot of people are just doing one collection. How they define collection is up to them, so it's a little generic stat, but it's great. You see the number of seeds there is, seed can be a website or individual document, but that's a lot, so about 40,000 gigabytes, 40 to 50 terabytes, as I mentioned, but over 60 to 80,000 different websites being archived. So that's amazing. What are their collections? We've been doing a lot of calls and blogging and outreach around this, but you got universities documenting campus life, student life, doing collections related to their existing special research collections. Public libraries are doing amazing work around the impact on local history, small businesses, arts and culture, social services, and especially we've been working with them to document how COVID and the coronavirus are impacting sort of marginalized or at-risk communities, which I think we all know has had a very significant impact. The virus has had a very significant impact on these communities in the US. National libraries are creating amazing collections around the civic impact, regional news. We've been working with a lot of NGOs that are documenting like how this has affected health issues, obviously, but also things like housing rights, the sort of diaspora. Obviously, a lot of people got trapped in other countries and there was a lot of action to get people back to their home nations. And of course, the impact on human rights and there's lots of government archiving going on as well. What are our plans and what have we been doing? We've been doing open calls, open to anyone doing digital collecting, whether they're using Archiveit or whether they're web archiving via other tools, doesn't matter. We're just interested in getting people together and giving them a forum to talk about what they're collecting. And they're often sharing just amazing use cases of how do you document the impact locally or on the community or on the subject or topic that you do collecting for. And people have really creative ways to find social media and web archives to find that. We're planning on building some sort of federated search of all these collections. You can search them individually, and you can do full text search across all of them, but full text search across 50 terabytes of data is not easy to browse through, let's say. So I think working with all these partners, okay, I'm at time. And we're gonna do some data sets and data sharing and data analysis. And that's actually the end of my presentation. I wanted to give a shout out to Carl Blumenthal, who's done a lot of work tracking these COVID collections in Archiveit and helping with some of the grants. And that's it. People are doing amazing work, and just wanted to give them a shout out here at IPRES for all these institutions collecting the web to document the crazy times.
Wow. And guess what? You have another minute you can talk.
How about just questions or now or at the end? I don't know how that works.
Tracy?
Yep, I don't see any questions.
Okay. Well, definitely the floor is open to anyone who might have a question for Jefferson.
Yep, I think on this, we've done a lot of blogging around on the Archivit blog and the Internet Archive blog. There's hundreds of collections. It's really interesting to go and search through them and see how some local communities are trying to archive websites to document what's going on in their locality and with their patrons and citizens. So it's definitely a sort of bottom-up effort, and a top-down effort, and they're both working pretty well.
You've gotten some couple of cheers.
I'll stop sharing. If you're interested in archiving web content related to the coronavirus, please get in touch with me. Jefferson@archive.org. That's the email, or go to any of our websites and you can get in touch. We're subsidizing services. We're doing free services. We're giving people data. We have great capacity and infrastructure. And this is a time where it's more important than ever to document what's going on.
There is one question. I don't know if we have time for this or if this might be appropriate at the end, but Jess Green has a question wondering about technology companies working on facilitating case investigation or contact tracing, and if any of these are participating in the types of web archiving efforts.
Cool question. We do have institutions that are trying to document this. I don't think technology companies are the ones we're working with, but we do have plenty of institutional partners that are documenting that, tracking some of the data platforms. Like one of my slides had folks that are documenting sort of the impact on Middle Eastern countries, which have also had like significant impact. So they're collecting some of the equivalent in Pakistan, say, of the Johns Hopkins portal that many of us in the US probably know about. Okay. So there are efforts around sort of case investigation, data tracking, data preservation. If it's on the web, even if it's a data set, of course, you can still archive it. Yep.
Just want to move on and say thank you very much for Jefferson. And if we can just give him a virtual applause, everybody. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And feel free to turn on your mic and say, your video say applause, applause, applause. Thank you. Moving along, and we definitely have time after, hopefully have time after all the presentations to continue to ask questions. And please use the chat box for additional questions. Next, let's see, we have our next presentation. Angela, Tom Smith, Patricia Klambauer, and Kevin Palander, Library and Archives Canada, preserving the impacts of COVID-19 toward elaborating methodologies for #web archiving, National Historical Events at LAC. It's all you.
Okay. All right, Tom, take it away.
Hi, everyone. Welcome and thanks for attending. I'm Tom Smythe with the National Library and Archives Canada, and we're very pleased to be here today to talk with you about the web archiving and social media program at LAC, particularly the evolution of our web archival curation methodology for documenting major historical events. We'll go really quickly, but we're very happy to discuss the details of anything mentioned herein that may be of interest. First slide. By way of intro to our program, it began in 2005 And I know that a number of institutions are undertaking a review of their enabling legislation this year. So I thought I'd mention that a strength of our program is that we're empowered under our legislation to collect material from the web or similar medium for the purposes of digital preservation, posterity, and for future research access. This is considered a distinct activity in Canada, independent of legal deposit and archival authorities, so is perhaps an interesting model to look at. Another aspect of our program is that we've built a hybrid web archiving team of library and archival professionals with backgrounds in history, social studies, geography, digital humanities, project management, and so on. And these team members then bring their perspectives to bear on the web archival curation for the enhancement of the research quality of the web archive. More to say on training curators in just a bit. On to the evolution of events-based curation methodology at LAC. Starting in about 2012, we documented major events largely in an ad hoc manner, which involved scrambling to collect material on major occurrences as they occurred. We realized this was inefficient, it absorbed a lot of resources, and it probably cost us some valuable sources. And it also prevented us from doing what we really wanted to do, which was to concentrate on acquiring the more specialized, detailed, and valuable resources that many researchers would want in a web archive. We needed a way to get out of in front of this, so we undertook an analysis of news media and newspapers in Canada in 2016. We then selected newspapers that were harvester friendly, that were high quality, that were diverse in their political and regional perspective and language, would present minimal quality control and preservation issues, and which could be harvested in a daily and ongoing manner. This enabled the capture of events-based information automatically as it was published and as it arose. This then, in turn, freed curatorial resources to do that specialized curation by topic. And as you'll appreciate, this then got scaled up considerably in response to COVID-19. I think we'll hear now about those details from Patricia.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Thanks, Tom. So with our coronavirus collection, so as Tom mentioned, we were capturing news media automatically. So our daily news media crawls captured the very earliest mentions of COVID-19 in the Canadian press, described as pneumonia or mysterious illness, as seen on this slide from our collection. In mid-February, we began selecting COVID-related websites for preservation as part of a global collaboration led by the International Internet Preservation Consortium. On March 9th, Canada saw its first death from COVID-19, and on March 11th, the World Health Organization declared the outbreak a pandemic. So by mid-March, our COVID-19 collection ramped up, and we began coordinating strategy with other Canadian institutions through the Canadian Web Archiving Coalition. Our preservation of websites and social media began. So what helped us to respond quickly? Firstly, our automated news crawls, as we mentioned. We crawl news media on a daily basis, which means we document events as they unfold, so we don't have to handpick COVID-19 content. Secondly, we have a deep familiarity with government websites. We crawl federal and some provincial websites routinely and comprehensively, so this makes it easier to scout out and capture new COVID-related content. Thirdly, we have well-established workflows for seed selection, crawling, quality assurance, and metadata, plus frameworks for project tracking. So we don't get tripped up over operational decisions too much when an event occurs. For instance, there's no longer any discussion about where should we save the spreadsheet. That's all taken care of. And lastly, but most importantly, we have a very effective and thoughtful team. The challenges, where are we here? The challenges that we faced. So this obviously the scope is enormous since COVID-19 affects every aspect of society. To help focus, our team defined broad subject categories or seed groups. The categories included federal and provincial public health, families and education, arts and culture, and so on. Then we matched the subject categories with the right team member based on knowledge and experience. This method allows web archivists to work more or less independently without bottlenecks or much overlap of effort. Now, lastly, as we all know, working from home is a challenging new reality requiring new tools in communication and collaboration. But on top of this, we are grappling with our personal circumstances, such as concern for at-risk loved ones, homeschooling, and childcare. So here's the collection at a glance. You can see that we've been quite productive since the pandemic began, as you can see in these numbers, totaling 4.5 terabytes of data. We have 17 members working on this project, and 2 of them are new to web archiving. So these new recruits, Angela and Kevin, will now speak of their experience.
Hey everybody, I'm Kevin Polenda. I'm a digital archivist and a recent web archivist at LAC. I'm here to talk a little bit, really to gush about the program methodology that had been developed before Angela, my colleague, and I joined the team early spring of this year. We joined the program as it was ramping up, as COVID was fast maneuvering through our society, and as sort of a way to hopefully dynamically document its reach and its impact. We were able to very quickly take up information because of the program methodology that we had at our disposal. So I see we're running out of time very quickly, so I'll do this quickly. The basic sort of anatomy of the methodology rests on a very lean set of documents that speak to one another and allow somebody new like me to get moving very quickly by referencing things like a metadata master list, metadata plan, as well as a larger sort of seed list that allow, as Patty said, quick tracking, quick scoping, and quick curation, that in concert with the great tools provided by Archivit have sort of provided the bedrock and the little bit of tools that have enabled Angela and I to sort of do our jobs very quickly and to learn. I'm going to turn it over really quickly to Angela to talk a little bit about digital detention.
Sure. So I'm Angela, another of LAC's newly trained web archivists, and I'll just quickly mention the method we use for knowledge transfer for Kevin and myself to get trained up in the basics of web archiving. So those of you who were at my talk last year at iPres might remember the term digital detention, coined by one of our colleagues at LAC. It's a loving term used to describe the digital knowledge transfer approach we use at LAC. It's an approach based on andragogy, so the art and science of helping adults learn. It has 4 key sort of areas or steps, which ensures its success. So it's focused on the self-concept of the learners. For Kevin and myself, that means this is a knowledge transfer activity that helps us in our professional role. We strive to do well by this team, so that was one of the elements of success. Work in small group learning environments. We did 1-to-1 or 1-to-2 sessions with Patricia or with Jason, another member of our team, to help us learn what we needed to learn to do the work. Helped us have a sense of ownership of our learning because we brought our challenges to Jason or Patty and they helped us work them through. Also having a problem-centered focus rather than a subject-centered focus is key for this sort of knowledge transfer because adult learners are motivated to learn to solve problems they currently face. And certainly web archiving the impacts of COVID-19 is a very immediate and pressing problem. And the last element is to have learner-directed sessions with dynamic responses from facilitators. So our facilitators modified their teaching to meet our shifting needs. So as Kevin and I got more confident with our curation, we started going after some more complex, from a technical point of view, acquisitions. And everyone on the web archiving team has been fantastic in helping us do that more complex work. So the result of this activity is some newfound skills and confidence, I think, for Kevin and myself. And I think we've been able to contribute a bit to the collection. So thank you all for listening to our hard work. And if anyone wants to chat digital detention, I'm always available. It's my favorite.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, Angela, Tom, Patricia, Kevin. Appreciate all that. If everyone just want to give a round of applause.
There is one question.
Okay, question, Tracy? Okay.
Yep, there is one. This is from Natalie Harrower. The question is, are your workflows available for others to consult? This sounds like it'd be widely adaptable.
I'll take that one. That it could be. You could get in touch with us, and we'll see what we can do.
Great. Thank you. And let's see if we can go to our next presentation and we can hold off additional questions, but I do want to say thank you everyone for that great presentation. And we want to move on just to keep us on time. Ming-Lu Wang. We have RDA COVID-19 Working Group Social Sciences, and she will introduce the rest of the group. Preservation recommendations for social science data in the RDA COVID-19 Working Group output. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so we are going to change our topic to web archiving to data preservation. So I'm Ming-Lu Wang. I'm a research data management librarian at York University in Canada, and I'm a member of the Research Data Alliance, RDA, COVID-19 Working Group. Today, I'm representing a group of members from the social sciences subgroup to present preservation recommendations for social science data in the RDA COVID-19 Working Group output. I want to acknowledge 7 other social sciences subgroup members for their contribution to this presentation all around the world, actually, and they are Claudia Engelhardt, Irina Kuchma, Catherine McNeil, Claudia Bowser Medeiros, Ingvild Machman, Amy Pianta, and Brian Pickering. As you have already known probably, since its establishment in 2013, RDA has been trying to create a neutral social platform on which international research data experts can meet to exchange views and form consensus on topics, especially social hurdles of data sharing, education training challenges, data management plans, and certification of data repositories, disciplinary and interdisciplinary interoperability, and the technological aspects of research data management. Within a short time, from April to June of this year, with contributions from over 600 data professional experts around the world, and through highly intensive weekly update webinars, online writing sprints, and editings, the working group successfully produced RDA COVID-19 guidelines and recommendations outputs, which covers sections across 4 research domains: clinical, omics, epidemiology, and social sciences, as well as 4 additional cross-cutting areas: community participation for data sharing, indigenous data, legal and ethical considerations, and research software and data sharing under COVID-19. So in this presentation, I'm going to highlight how data preservation was extensively discussed within the data sharing in social sciences section. The executive summary of the RDA COVID-19 guidelines and recommendations discusses the topic of preservation in one of its key recommendations, number 8, which states, use trustworthy data repositories committed to the long-term preservation and sustained access to their data holdings. In fact, this view of long-term preservation as one aspect of data repositories appears twice in the final document in both the community participation and the social sciences sections. However, the social sciences section goes beyond this repository contextualized discussion of data preservation. As you can see from the table of contents of the data sharing in social sciences section, which is section 6 in the finalized COVID-19 working group output document, we have actually situated data preservation in 3 subsections: section 6.3, policy recommendations, section 6.4.4, legal and ethical requirements, and section 6.4.5, data sharing and long-term preservation. I'm going to expand on each of these areas and show you how we have discussed the data preservation in detail. In the policy recommendations subsection, we urge agencies funding social sciences to support infrastructure for data archiving and preservation, and to cover infrastructure costs in the broadest sense, considering needs that include long-term preservation. And we also recommend that various official data providers require minimum metadata that will allow linking across domains, and social sciences journals should require data availability statements for COVID-19 research articles upon their publication. Both of these stakeholder mandates would help push rapid COVID-19 data publication toward long-term considerations of data access and reuse across disciplines and domains. When discussing legal and ethical requirements in the data sharing in social sciences section, we emphasize explicitly that licenses and agreements in the data acquisition stage should enable downstream data sharing and preservation. We suggest that data preservation, in addition to data sharing, should be planned and managed when researchers and other stakeholders are using various principles and strategies to balance the needs of both rapid data sharing and legal and ethical compliance. For example, the CARE data principle, Open COVID pledge, and expedited IRB reviews. Finally, in the data sharing and long-term preservation subsection, our social sciences subgroup authors extensively discuss data preservation from 3 different aspects. First, we discuss preservation as an important criterion for evaluating a data repository. Second, we emphasize secure preservation of data linkage information. And third, we suggest preserving complete, contextual, technical, administrative, and rights documentations. So in conclusion, within just the 5 pages of data sharing in social sciences section of the RDA COVID-19 recommendations and guidelines, we seek to connect many dots across the whole data ecosystem when we discuss data preservation. And we emphasize the necessity of funding priorities for preservation infrastructure, policy imperatives for standardized metadata and data availability statements, earlier ethical consideration on the needs of later preservation, and enabling secure longitudinal linking and reuse of data. We believe that this multi-stakeholder and multidimensional understanding of data preservation should be further adopted in other research domains, especially during current and future public health emergencies. And that's the end of my presentation. Thank you, everyone. I look forward to answering your questions. Let me stop my sharing here.
I didn't get to use my bell. All right, thank you very much, Ming Lu. And we want to make sure we say thank you. Oh, wait, can you hear that?
Now we can hear it.
That's in 1 minute, and you still have an additional minute for your 8 minutes. But thank you very much. Are there any questions?
I don't see any in the chat at this time. There were a few related to Jefferson's presentation that came up that he did respond to, but might be nice to hear for all. So another question that Jefferson received was, when will the Web Archive database be open for public search and public view?
Yeah, so we're going to do a whole bunch of data sets out of the collection. I'm not sure exactly what database means in this context because there's lots of data involved. Certainly things like list of all the individual websites being archived across all the institutions, we'll do that. We plan on releasing some data sets sort of more oriented for text mining or computational research. Things like named entities. We'll maybe do some summaries of the different languages represented in all these collections, as well as like what nation they came from, things like that. So we plan to do all of those sometime in Q4, so in the next couple of months. Obviously, people are still collecting and the pandemic doesn't look to be ending anytime soon, but we do want to start releasing some of the sort of extracted kind of data from it soon.
Okay, Great, thank you. There was also a question from Abby Grotke. Her question is, any suggestions on how we link other collecting activities that are not using Archivit?
Yes, so we are intending to make it open to any institution that has web archives, regardless of whether they have worked with Internet Archive or Archivit to do the collecting. There's some complexities to that because we have to index the data and things like that. So if we don't have the data, we can't really index it. But there are ways to share resources and link out to other people's archives. So the intent is anyone that wants to opt in to being in a sort of centralized access portal would be welcome to do so. Well, there's details to figure out around the search and indexing and how to link out and some of those type things, but those are not daunting technical issues. So that's the goal. Don't know when that will get built. It's always, whenever people cycles are available. So maybe early next year.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And I also want to bring to attention that for Minglu, you can read the RDA COVID-19 recommendations. In the chat is a link to where you can find the recommendations and the guidelines and more about RDA and COVID-19. Are there any other questions you want to ask anyone at this time? The floor is open. Anybody want to sing a song? I don't know. I'm tired of COVID, so I get a little antsy and just need to be able to do something exciting and hear good positive news. I think we had 3 great presentations full of information, opportunities to follow through. Wow, there's a whole lot of collecting happening because there's a lot that's going on. Wow. I'm looking forward to our next steps because 2020 is just so not my thing right now. Moving on to 2021, I'm praying that it's going to be different. Yeah, it's going to be different. It's going to be better. Any thumbs up on that one? 2021 better? Yes, couple of thumbs up. In fact, I'm actually okay if the rest of 2020 gets itself together. But thank you very much for everyone being here. We have some time before the break. If anyone has any questions, recommendations, suggestions, something that I should probably have for dinner tonight, that's still open. I don't have kids I'm teaching. I wish I did, because I think that's a pretty exciting time for families having to do that. So, and they might not think so, but they just don't know yet. It's different. And different is different for everybody in their own way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm still debating if I should go outside, right? Go outside, go to the store, don't go to the store. What's on what's on today? Yeah.
One thing with working at home, I've actually been able to get outside more, like go out for walks, and because there's a bit of time freed up instead of commuting, so that's actually been nice. But as Angela said earlier, with winter coming, I'm really going to have to make a concerted effort to plan. Well, I guess I can go out and, I guess shovel a bit of snow, but but actually maybe even get some snowshoes, just something, and having my wardrobe, it isn't. I don't have a big wardrobe for getting outside, so I'm going to have to the proper equipment, maybe some snowshoes for some fun, something like that.
I'm looking forward to the utility bills. Wow, I'm home. I've got to turn up the heat all day now. Wow.
That's true. That's true. Even my electricity bill is a little bit higher.
My electricity, yeah. When we're talking about 100-degree weathers for several days after, I was like, yeah, I'm turning on the air conditioning. That's just it. Okay, I'm here making the best of it. I'm worth paying a couple of extra dollars, to keep the electricity, the AC up and running. So but thank you. I'm excited for our next steps, and I'm sure all our presenters are looking forward to continuing the work that they're doing, and everyone else has an opportunity to. And I'm sure, did you put how to reach out to you in the chat? Just in case someone wants to say, how do I connect with you? I'm sure it was on your presentations, but just pop it in the chat and maybe we'll be able to say, hey, as I was going to sleep last night, it came that I should have asked this question. You know, that usually happens with me. I'm like, oh, I should have, woulda, coulda, right? Oh man. But this stream, does it stay open? Is there another session? I don't know. Let me take a look.
Yeah,
I'm going
to
look
put
at
them in the chat. We have a break in 5 minutes. And then after the break, we'll have another session.
Another session. Excellent.
Yeah. These are the Zoom links.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
Right. I'm looking, this is, I have been so wonderfully impressed with how this has been put together. And part of my participating was say, okay, I am going to have to do this at some point. How do I make this work? Well, one of the things I'm like, well, participate, learn how this works, okay? And working with all the different time zones. I was up at midnight, was it yesterday? Yeah. And participating, and I'm a night person, so I'm good, right? But so I'm like, yay, I can do this, I can stay up, but then I'm like, oh wait, you got to go to work also. Okay. So by 2:30 in the morning, I'm like, okay, got to shut off. But yeah, it's been fun. It's been fun, and I'm excited about tomorrow's, which is actually later tonight. I think my time zone, it is later tonight. I'm like, yay. And this is the first time I've had anything to do with this organization. I love this. We miss iPress. And I'm like, I don't miss it, but I'm loving it. So, all the people who've participated in the past, I totally get it. I understand how you would indeed miss it. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Tina. I'm going to duck out a second because I have to chair another session and need a little break for a second. So,
and I need to go.
All right.
Yeah. Thanks, Tina. Thanks, Tina, for guiding us along.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Tina, and thanks to iPress, folks.
Bye, everybody. Thanks.
Thank you, everyone. Goodbye.
Thanks, everyone.
All right. Thank you, Angela, so much for helping.
Thank you for being a great chair. I had fun.
I'm going to shut off, go to work, come back. Be right back.
See you in a bit.
Hi, Angela.
Hello. Hi.
Hi, I'm the first speaker in the next session.
Hello, we received your presentation.
Fantastic. I've been having some network problems, so will you play that?
Yes. Do you know what? Shall we try it out now?
Wonderful, yes.
I'll start sharing my screen because I opened your presentation already. There we go. Let's see if this starts to play.
Hello, I'm Doug White. I lead the National Software Reference.
And it does. Perfect.
Wonderful.
So we tested that. What we'll do is the chair will introduce you in 10 minutes, and then I'll take over and I'll start sharing my screen, and we'll then hope for the best. And then afterwards we'll have time for questions.
Great, thank you. I'll definitely be on for all of that.
Perfect. Great to have you here.
Thank you. This has been wonderful so far.
It has been fun, hasn't it? And in the back, behind the scenes, we're all going like this. Okay, we hope it's going to go as well as well until now, because everything's gone smoothly thanks to the speakers, to everybody's positive moods and enthusiasm. So great to see.
I think overall there's just such a happy attitude about all this. So yeah, it's been good.
If you make sure to visit after this session, we'll have the close with the social get together, and that will be fun too. It was I was in it yesterday, and it's just fun. Everybody was wearing their digital preservation hats, and we saw some some house cats, some dogs, and it was just really fun. So
Yep, I had my hat and my cat.
oh, you were? Yeah, okay.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm gonna go back to your presentation and go to the start now.
Okay.
Hi, Angela. This
Hello.
is the chair. How are you?
Hi. I'm fine, and you?
Pretty good.
Good. All set?
I think so.
Do you want to try sharing your screen?
Sure. I want to see if I can play a sound effect through screen share, make sure it works.
Wow.
That works.
That worked? Okay. Cool.
Okay. So when are you going to present together with Douglas?
No, I'm the chair.
Oh, sorry. God. I'm just you don't want to look at my desk. It's like piled up everywhere. I think. I will shut
And I'm Patricia, and I'm the co-chair.
Hi, Patricia. So, nice to see you.
Hello. I'll keep track of the chat and try and think of questions as people speak. So last time there weren't many questions in the chat. I'm guessing there might be more this time around, but.
I hope so, but we've seen not a lot of questions in the chat, but then once one person asks something, the rest come over, and then we can you can also open the floor. People just want to open their mic and then ask the question.
That's a good idea.
Hey, so this is Leslie from NARA. Elizabeth and I are presenting jointly, but I'll be sharing my screen to do the slides.
Perfect. Okay. Do you want to do a test run?
Sure.
Go for it. Yeah.
So all good?
Loud and clear. Yep.
All right. Happy to.
It's not on presentation mode. Yeah,
I know. I didn't bother. I just wanted to make sure that I could share it. I hadn't got it into presentation mode yet. So, because when I put it into presentation mode, it takes over my entire machine.
Okay. No, it just yesterday we had someone have a problem with that. So just you were aware.
Yeah.
Hi, everybody. This is Kate Murray from the Library of Congress. And because Leslie just tested hers, it made me think I should probably do the same. So do you mind if I do a quick test?
Go for it.
Thank you. There we go. and I'll put that in. Yep. Okay, looks good?
Yeah, looks perfect.
Okay, thank you.
I can.
Anybody there? I thought there was someone started to talk just then. Maybe they stopped. That's okay.
I think it was Paul coming in
Yeah.
and joining us.
Oh, that makes sense. Just, yeah, not muting when you join. Okay. In that case, I'm Alex Garnett. I'm going to be speaking in this session as well. I can test mine just super quick if nobody minds.
Welcome.
I'm not expecting it to be terribly complicated. I'm assuming everyone can see that?
Yes.
Okay, terrific.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Hey everyone,
Hi, Ross.
how's it going?
Good. How are you?
Not too bad, not too bad. Just rushing between meetings. It's been a trying to fit everything in.
Yeah, blocking my week for this conference didn't quite go as planned, but most of the way there.
Lovely to put a face to a name, Alex.
Yeah, you as well.
Are you in? I never know geographically what you are. Are you in BC?
I'm in Vancouver. Yeah. You're in Hamilton, right?
I'm in Hamilton. Yeah.
It's not as bad as that. Come on.
No, and today I happen to know it's torrential rain there, and it's sunny here. So sorry, Vancouverites.
Oh, that's pretty typical. Don't worry about that. It's actually, torrential rain here is typically refreshing. It's like never-ending drizzle is dispiriting. But, we went from like real sun to real rain, which in my book is just fine.
Hi, Ross.
Hey, Stacy, how you doing?
Good.
It's been a while.
I know. Huh? I like your shirt.
Oh, thanks.
It's good compliment.
I picked one of my best for today.
Yep. Celebrate the 50th anniversary of Paranoid.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Oh, I did not know that. And this is our second iPress together. Finally.
Just the second?
I think so. Melbourne and here, is that right?
Yeah. I guess you weren't at the last one I was at. But technically this isn't iPress, remember?
True. We'll have to meet in China next year.
I don't think I'll have the budget, but
No, not me, but
so we're almost at time. So we're starting at a 10 after. Yes, okay.
That's right. Yeah.
Just wait one more minute. All right, I guess we can go ahead and get started since it is now 10 after. Hi, everybody. My name is Stacy Erdman, and I'm the Digital Preservation and Curation Officer and Acting Digital Repository Manager at Arizona State University. I'll be your chair for this session, which is Stream 3, the best of digital preservation in 2020. There are 2 other concurrent streams going on at this time slot, so please double check and make sure this is the stream that you want to attend. Our tech lead, Angela, will provide links in the chat box to these other streams just in case you do need to switch. She'll also link us to the collaborative note-taking document in the chat. So if you're a note-taking whiz and wouldn't mind helping out there, that'd be great. As I'm sure you've heard in other sessions, We Miss iPres is an informal gathering. We're here to share and learn, but also to connect and have fun. I believe William Kilbride from the DPC actually asked us to be jolly. So I expect everyone here to take that to heart. However, we have 5 jam-packed presentations in this stream, so I'll be keeping a close eye on time. Each presenter in the stream has 8 minutes for their presentation. I'll be playing a warning sound when they have 1 minute remaining, and I'll also play the same sound when their time is up. Please feel free to submit any questions that you have for the presenter directly into the chat box. Our co-chair, Patricia, will be monitoring the chat and will pick a single question for the presenter to answer. They'll then have 1 minute. That's it. If we have time at the end of the session, Patricia will get to more of your questions. Our speakers have some really exciting project updates to share, so let's go ahead and kick things off. Our first presenter is Douglas White, who leads the National Software Reference Library project at NIST, and Doug will be presenting recent advances on the National Software Reference Library. Take it away, Doug.
We've got a presentation from him, so I'll start sharing my screen.
Hello, I'm Doug White. I lead the National Software Reference Library project at NIST. It's a pleasure to be here to talk to you about recent advances at the NSRL. I need to call attention to our disclaimer. I'll provide a brief history and then talk about advances in our collection focus, process, and publications. When the project began, it needed to be traceable back to a physical collection. We have over 450 meters of shelves full of original software, equating to over 20,000 titles. The majority of the collection covers the range of years from 1998 to about 2018. All of the physical media has been imaged and materials photographed. The core of the NSRL has always been the physical collection, the virtual collection, which is the media images and photographs, the database of all the metadata we collect, and then the reference data set that we publish, which is a subset of that database. As physical distributions declined, we started ramping up our download-only collection, including mobile apps and online platform games, and also ramping up our virtual machine installation so that we could collect other reference data and publish that based on installation of titles, execution, patches, etc., and also registry data. And we are what the SAA calls a dark archive. We are not a lending library, except in one particular case. But we do allow researchers to have access to all of the original files, all of the original media images that we have, and to our database. And we have some examples of some collaborators coming. Into NIST or sending their algorithms to us to run on NIST campus. Our collection focus has always been popularity, which is what are the files and titles most likely to be found on computers that are part of a digital investigation. We get guidance from law enforcement agencies through a steering committee to either gather benign software or malicious software or software related to news items, let's say. But we have stopped collecting physical media. We have just completely stopped that. We are limiting the large items that we acquire, such as the downloadable gaming platform items, to one version per quarter, which is our publishing cycle. And we are focusing more on live system captures now. This is just a quick review of what our collection process was at the start of the year. On the left-hand side, you can see we used a public ISP to download high-risk large items to a station on our campus. And using our campus connection to the internet, we were able to download low-risk and small objects to stations on our campus. From both of those places, we created Library of Congress BagIt objects and actually physically carried them to a SneakerNet gateway through which we uploaded the bag contents onto the NSRL network. Now that we are all working from home, off campus, again, I'll start on that left-hand side of the diagram. We still use a public ISP to download items, high-risk large downloads, onto the machines that are on our campus, but we are going through our firewall and to an IP-based KVM in order to control those machines that are still on the campus. So we're still gathering our big downloads through the same way, but we've had to use a different secure way in order to get onto campus to monitor those machines. And again, it's SneakerNetted. Library of Congress BagIt objects. When we can go on campus, usually about once a month, we are SneakerNetting those over, and we can keep track of how those are filling our SneakerNet disks. We have been fortunate in that all of the people who are working from home do not have caps on their ISPs. So everyone working from home is able to download the small, low-risk items from the internet. Combine them into Library of Congress BagIt objects, upload them into an unsecure cloud location. So everything that our staff can do for the general collection of the low-risk small items can be done without using our VPN. You know, they've got access to the internet, they've got access to an unsecure cloud location, so they can keep working without sending any extra data over our VPN, which is key in these times. So we've got a process where when they do that, they also out of band send a catalog of what they've downloaded from the internet and uploaded to our unsecure cloud. So as that BagIt object progresses from the unsecure cloud to a secure cloud to our cloud gateway now, that out-of-band information and the actual BagIt object meet, and we can verify that, yes, what we're expecting to pull down from the cloud storage is what should have been sent to us. When we verify that, do a couple of other checks, then things pass through the cloud gateway into the NSRL network. So that's our new collection process. We'll probably be doing a lot more cloud-based things in the near future. And our publication has been 4 flat text files, which are exported from our database. We're changing that very soon. We've got some test data sets out to vendors, and we're just waiting for some feedback on that. But we will be publishing SQLite exports of our publishable database content, plus SQL scripts for views, other exports that researchers might be interested in from that database content. One of the big things that we'll put in the hands of researchers is the NSRL key IDs for our images, for our files, etc., that people would be interested in accessing when they have access to the research environment that we have. So instead of trying to talk back and forth about, what exactly are you looking for, we can specifically say, if you're looking up DLLs in our particular database, then these are the key IDs that you would ask for access into our corpus storage of those files. So we're hoping to have a better rapport with researchers here in the future. And if you have any questions, further questions after this conference or this session, you can email the NSRL team at the email address on the screen, nsrl@nist.gov. Thank you very much, and I look forward to a few questions.
Thank you, Doug. That was great. Patricia, are there any questions in the chat?
I didn't see any in the chat, but maybe people want to ask them now, just by saying something.
Yeah, if you want to unmute yourself and ask in person, that'd be fine.
There's a question from Joanne asking, what is the biggest challenge with the collection?
The biggest challenge really is just the sheer volume that's out there. I mean, we recognize we're a drop in the bucket. With mobile apps, things change so fast, you can hardly keep up. And now with Blizzard Steam games that just fill up people's disks with the gaming titles, volume is an issue too.
And the other question is from you and Cochrane. Anything new coming in SQLite exports, metadata-wise?
It's going to be everything except for the internal tracking metadata that we keep in our regular database. So it's going to be the full set. It's going to have, the SHA-256s that aren't in the RDS publication right now, but all of the interconnecting tables, etc. If you've ever gotten a database set from us, it's going to be that, but in SQLite.
Great. Well, thank you, Doug. Next up, we have Alex Garnett, Research Data Management and Systems Librarian at Simon Fraser University, who is presenting Aesthetic Trends of Compression Artifacts.
All right, thank you, Stacy, and thank you, Doug, for a great talk. I'm excited to share this work. I did it very much on a whim. It's very We Miss iPrezi. It's something that I was interested in for quite a while, but I'm not sure I would have actually had the presence of mind to do it in this format otherwise. So I thank you all for that. So I'm very interested in the aesthetic trends of compression artifacts, specifically in what is judged good enough over time and what compression is tolerated. So video artifacting is something that we're all probably pretty familiar with. Basically, compressed video or images exhibit different artifacts. Corey Archangel, the net artist, wrote a really good overview of how iframes and p-frames are used in video formats back in 2007. Basically, you have an iframe, which is the whole image. You have p-frames or b-frames that store diffs from one frame to the next in order to try to save space. And compression formats often don't use enough p-frames, or they use insufficiently rich p-frames, leading to artifacting and visual degradation. The most obvious form of that in modern video is macro blocking. And I have used my favorite free animation, Big Buck Bunny, to demonstrate macro blocking, I've taken a good encode, then I deliberately made some really crummy encodes with FFmpeg. And so you can see, I'm not sure how fast the zoom is refreshing, but the bottom frame, you can see almost blocks in the image because the bitrate is so low. And that's macro blocking. If we look at the Big Buck Bunny credits, once again, you can see the bottom portion. It almost looks like falling blocks, like a waterfall or Tetris. And that's what you get when you deliberately use really poor compression to get really, really deliberate artificial macro blocking. So we all know about that. These are pretty common, especially in H.264, which is a really, really common streaming codec for HD video. It's been very, very widespread for about a decade. This is what you get from Netflix, from Prime, from Hulu, from everywhere else still. There are successors, but they're all JPEG-derived codecs. H.264 was just the right one at the right time. And they're ubiquitously hardware decoded and encoded, so they are pretty widely supported. So we all kind of get used to this. Bit rates of these streaming services are often quite low to save on bandwidth. From a climate change point of view, we probably don't want Netflix generating, more emissions than all of Iceland. And their solution to this is to encode your media at a pretty low bit rate. And so now that physical media is less widely available, these become the canonical consumer copy of a lot of films. So people come to tolerate a commercial film streaming at 3 megabits a second, which does generate in its way a lot of degradation. So if we look here, this is a clip from John Cassavetes' Shadows. This is a black and white film. And this is a approximately 3 megabit encode. So it's like what you get off of Netflix. It's not terrible, but you can see there's a lot of noise in the portions that should be really dark and black and white. And to me, like as a cinephile, as a preservationist, I find this very offensive that this is often the best available copy. I've been doing like streaming watch parties with my friends during coronavirus, and a lot of what led me to this work was realizing just how bad a lot of the best available copies we could get for our own fun screenings were. So this is currently judged as tolerable, I feel like oftentimes, because it's what's available. And that trade-off is really interesting to me because what's tolerable, I think, changes with the era of the technology. Black levels are really contentious. People fight about them on web forums a lot. When you're buying like an HDR TV set, people talk about those things. They add a lot of noise where there should be quiet. And sure enough, this is a dance recording from our collection at SFU that I was recently working with. And you can see, because it's a fairly dark video, the artifacting on the dancer on the right is really bad. This is not our master copy, but this was the H.264 that came out of our preservation system as the default access copy. And you can see just how unacceptable that is at default parameters, right? Like we think that H.264 is good enough for access without having to tweak it very much. We're going to store our good FFV1 copy, whatever. But to me, this artifacting is still really, really difficult to get past. And the baseline that we establish is often not great. So I worry about that. There are other forms of artifacting as well. So this is the current H.264, but the Twitter user Foon, who does a lot of old technology stuff, was recently circulating some FMVs from old FMV games that used old QuickTime codecs. The artifacting here is different. You see a lot of pixel crawl on this person's figure. I've heard this referred to as a moshing pattern. There was a recent thesis in Ireland that talked about what those different compression artifacts look like. The color depth is lower, but you see a lot more crawl. Not as much in the dark areas, but everywhere. And lo and behold, that sort of comes back over time. This might be giving you a headache to watch. It makes me kind of dizzy. This is a post-processing effect that NVIDIA shipped for a recent video game using their new super sampling technology that tries to extrapolate a 4K image from a 1080p one. And because the ground truth is not as high resolution, when the camera pivots, they're trying to extrapolate more data than they actually have, and it makes me dizzy. And so you see that moshing artifact comes back over time, again, because this is the best available format. And so the tolerances for a lot of these really change, and I'm actually very curious personally, aesthetically, as to how they change our expectations of watching video and what sort of degradation that we're going to tolerate, and also whether that in turn informs video creators' choices. I've seen YouTubers talk about like trying to pursue hyper-saturated colors to avoid compression algorithms, making their videos look like interesting, which to me is scary because it means that we're all going to, have hyper-saturated, brightly colored videos for children pretty soon if a generation of cinematographers and video producers grow up and that sort of thing. So I worry about that. And this is seen across the board in a lot of different contexts. Rosa Menkman maintains this really great site, A Lexicon of Glitch Affect, in which she tracks the development over time of deliberate glitching, again, in commercial film and television. So, you know, everybody knows sort of what a VCR like stop play overlay looks like, or what old basic cable distortion looks like. But as people grow up with that or don't, and they change their expectations for glitch affect, you see some interesting patterns over time. So I'm sort of interested in doing the non-deliberate equivalent for a lexicon of glitching. I want to see, you know, how consumer trends for good enough video have changed over time. Rosa Menkman's approach is more artistic. Mine, I actually just want to see, like, what are people downloading? What are they having to put up with? And how does that inform their judgment? You know, why is this? This is a hockey game between, I think, the Habs and the Leafs from the 70s. Why is this now less tolerable? Because the colors are all blown out, but at least you don't get that same digital artifacting, right? It changes what you come to expect. There's also some neat work. You see folks trying to upscale their copies of Star Trek DS9 from the old DVDs because it was never officially remastered into HD. And again, you see people trying to blow out those old 480i signals using a grab bag of Windows binaries. They're not using FFmpeg, they're not using open source tools, not using best practices, but they are trying to do their best with that ground truth to try to make it comparable visually to what you want to see now. Interestingly, a lot of this stuff boils down to being a very computationally expensive way of compensating for no longer having an old CRT TV that would look good at older resolutions and whose TV snow would be more natural. So again, thinking about the greenhouse gas emissions, you know, Netflix doesn't want to encode at high bit rates, but instead you've got folks trying to use like way more computational power just because they no longer have older media that can be transferred faithfully. So that part's interesting. It's not necessarily desirable. You know, there's a very large possibility space here, and a lot of what's thought of as best practices is often very fixed to current technology. If we look at video games, when emulators first became popular in the late 90s, you had on the left people trying to upscale their video games to make them look like they were native on like a 1024 by 768 LCD. And so you get the colors blown out and the details sharper than they were actually meant to. On the right-hand side, you actually see the common state of the art, which is to add a deliberate CRT blurring filter. And so you get softer details and it looks more like the colors were designed to in the first place. So there's a subtle change in what's desirable and what's thought to be more faithful. And again, you see that element of it taking orders of magnitude more powerful modern technology to reproduce older technology. We've sort of abandoned the halfway step, and we are getting closer to it, but I wonder how much more this will change in the future. The movie Predator was remastered on Blu-ray at one point, and they denoised the hell out of it because, again, that was thought to be desirable at one point. You know, make it look smooth. And I think we're getting away from that, but consumer trends are as interesting to me as preservation trends. I want to know what most people are expecting to get out of an upscale. When we talk about the value add for video preservation, I want to know what the layperson is taking away from it and how that translates into their expectations. So obviously, keeping original masters is great, but I really do think that our standards of presentation and for good enough do change quite a bit over time, and I want to see how they change and how they inform our thinking. So that's it. I think I've gone a little bit long. Thank you for tolerating me talking really fast. I used a lot of fun tools in this talk. This presentation is using Reveal.js. GIFsicle was very useful in making those GIFs. It's a great way of showing live video clips like that. And Lossless Cut, if you don't know about it, is a really nice way of using FFmpeg with a GUI just to make really, really quick snips on longer video. So thanks very much. You can find me at AXFelix on Twitter and always cite Big Buck Bunny. Thank you.
Thanks, Alex. That was cool. Does anybody have any questions for Alex? Nothing in the chat?
There's nothing on the chat.
Okay. I actually let Alex go a little over because he was on a roll, so.
Thank you, Stacy.
You're welcome.
Maybe we can leave some time at the end if there's more questions then.
Yeah. So next up we have Elizabeth England and Leslie Johnson, both from the U.S. National Archives and Records Administration, and they'll be presenting on the NARA Digital Preservation Framework release.
Great. Thank you so very much. I am just bringing up my slides. Come on. All right. I'm Leslie Johnston, and I am the Director of Digital Preservation at the U.S. National Archives, and I'm speaking today with my colleague Elizabeth England about our recent work in the release of our digital preservation framework. So the work actually started a couple of years ago with a collections format profile. And the reason this was significant for us is that we actually have 9 instances of 4 different systems that each have different tooling around digital preservation, and they also operate under different regulations. So they have different levels of access, not only for the public, but for staff. So we needed to actually get a better handle on everything that we had in all of those systems. We used a manual process, and I spoke about this at iPres a couple of years ago, and if anybody's interested, we can provide a link to that paper. But we had to use a manual process to combine the reports from all of the systems. The reports were all at different levels of granularity, so it was very interesting to actually combine all of those that then required normalization across the reports. Because of the different granularity levels, one system might tell us that a file is an Adobe Acrobat PDF, while another system would tell us that another file is Adobe Acrobat 1.4. So we had to do the normalization across the aggregation, and we ended up with a list of several hundred file format versions across the systems, comprising about 2 billion files at the time. Our second step in developing our framework was coming up with a process for assessing risk. So we developed a risk matrix, which is a spreadsheet instrument that applies a series of weighted factors that are related to the preservation sustainability of each of the file formats that we had identified in the collection format profile, and those generated a numeric score. So each of those questions has a different type of relative weighting that maps to level of risk. And to the extent that we could define it, which we could not always, resource costs, which could be either staff time or available tools or budget. This includes these high-level factors that really take into account our current environment and capabilities. There are tools that we currently have, tools that we have on a wish list that we don't yet have, tools that we can't always easily acquire because they're not available to us as a United States federal agency. And so we sometimes do and run processes that may not always be what everyone else recognizes as the best or most efficient, but it's what we're currently capable of. So we currently calculate high, moderate, and low risk, and those thresholds are open to review and revision over time for us. So the third step was developing preservation action plans. And those plans really take into account both the essential characteristics for electronic records that are held in our holdings. And those characteristics and plans also document risk, they collate lists to specifications and other digital preservation resources, and that what our current internal recommended actions are and the plans that we're going to use. So we needed to separate this into 2 different types of documents. One is a record type plan. Our transfer guidance to federal agencies are about each type of record, whether it's email, GIS, database, still image, audio, video, digital video. And each of those have their own sets of essential characteristics that fall under appearance, structure, behavior, and context. These are the properties that should, if possible, be retained in any migration. And we use those as metrics both in appraisal and to test potential tools. We also have a plan that is a single spreadsheet that contains over 500 file formats and format versions across all of the record types. And of course, formats can be part of different record types, such as PDF or XML. It contains the links to the specification, other resource links, such as to archive team or to Wikidata, other format information, the preservation actions that we currently use, and across all the record types. And our goal in this is ensure that the framework's actionable and extensible, not just for our use over time, but for other institutions. And now I will hand it over to Elizabeth.
All right, so in 2019, a draft of the Digital Preservation Framework was made available on NARA's GitHub. I've provided the links in the chat. And there was a few-month period for feedback, and the comments generally fell into a few categories. First, we needed to clarify that the plans represent NARA's current practices based on current infrastructure and capabilities and are not necessarily recommendations for the entire field. It was also recommended to provide more granular descriptions by breaking format families down to the versions. So again, with PDF, it's now broken out by version, and this has enabled better one-to-one matching with Pronom and Wikidata records. There were also suggestions of formats to include for analysis, such as calendars, ebooks, some statistical data and database formats. Between this and breaking the families down into versions, we added more than 150 new entries for a total of more than 500 format preservation action plans, as Leslie said. And for each format entry, we have links to other resources such as Pronom, Library of Congress, Wikidata. And then another area of feedback was to make the plans more actionable. So in the original draft, the plans were presented in text documents, but we moved them from being in those text documents to a single spreadsheet and CSV file. And they're more actionable and also will support linked data mining for Wikidata as we're working towards that. Next slide. So in June 2020, after completing these revisions, we released the first official framework a few months ago. You can access it at this URL here, which is also in the chat. And the framework is available in the public domain, so use and reuse are widely encouraged. We know some other institutions have been using it to conduct risk analysis and preservation planning on their collections. So we love hearing about that and getting your feedback, because it will influence the direction that we go. And the framework can be used across the life cycle. Its sustainability metrics provide context for records creator and management guidance, are integrated into electronic record selection and appraisal criteria, are used in evaluating processing and preservation tools, and support the selection of formats used when providing public access. The plans are iterative, and we will continue to add new formats, update our preservation recommendations, update our practices with new tools, and revise with links to new and updated community resources. Constantly, there's new FDDs coming out from Library of Congress, and I'm grabbing those URLs and putting them in for our upcoming release. So it really is a community effort. And that is all. Thank you.
And we are happy to answer any and all questions.
Thanks, Elizabeth and Leslie. Are there any questions in the chat?
There's one question by Kay Nauman about, sorry, it's moving. Why did you use the term essential characteristics instead of significant properties?
It's actually just an artifact of previous work that we have done at the National Archives. We had done some foundational work about 10 years ago, and we had used that particular phrase internally, and just for continuity of effort, we used that.
Thank you. And there's another question by Ewan Cochrane about, can you discuss any more what your plans are for working with Wikidata?
We are definitely, I mean, I'd love to talk to you directly about that at some point, Ewan. We are still working through in terms of our own environment, what the process is for, sustainably releasing it as like full linked data using archives.gov, which is why we decided that at least we would put out an actionable CSV. And I hope that we could at least have that CSV mined for Wikidata, because it includes the links to Wikidata archive team, Wikipedia, Library of Congress, and Pronom. And I think that it would be great if we could go ahead and start populating that, even though we don't yet have endpoints available at archives.gov.
Otherwise, lots of positive comments and thank yous for sharing your work.
Thank you for including us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next we have Catherine Thornton from Yale University Library and Ross Spencer from Artifactual Systems Incorporated, in collaboration with Ewan Cochran and Richard Lehane. And they'll be presenting Siegfried and Wikidata together at last.
Yes. Do I share my screen?
Yes, you can share your screen.
Okay. All right. Let's try. No, that's not the right button. Okay. Hey, everyone. First of all, thank you for having us. And those were some amazing talks as well. And it was great to hear the Wikidata stuff. So Kat and I and Ewan and Richard have been working on a Wikidata integration for Siegfried. Thank you very much to Ewan. This is part of his easy vision. And Richard also identified me as someone who might have some capacity to do some Golang, some Siegfried development. So he put us together and we've got this work after 7 months. Why file formats? Well, a lot of people in the room might know, but some might not. To whatever your strategy in information records management or digital preservation, you need to know the context of the records, you need to know whether something has changed, and you need to know what you've got. With Easy becoming more appliance-like in terms of how you can access it and use it, the line between knowing what you've got and being able to use what you've got gets even thinner. And there are heaps of formats in Wikidata. So it's a really good resource to start thinking about how we connect file format identification, easy, and using your information. But let's have a look at a demo. Hopefully this will work. And it does not look like it's going to, does it? I don't think I've got another way of getting this for y'all. You never think the live demo is going to fail on the video that you pre-recorded.
Do you have the video outside of the slide presentation?
That's a really good point, Stacey. But I think it will work in Firefox here.
Right. Okay.
He says. Sorry, folks. Okay.
So you're looking to build a Wikidata identifier in Siegfried. Let's see how we do that. First of all, here is a typical record for portable network graphics.
Ross, we're not seeing the video.
That looks as follows, which might be familiar to some, but not to everyone. Given thousands of records, how do we get this information from Wikidata into Siegfried? First of all, let's ask its partner toy Roy to harvest the Wikidata source.
Ross, you might need to reshare a different window because it only shares one window, not what you're seeing on the screen.
Okay.
Here we have a chunk of
I'm sorry,
that contains
everyone.
all of the information we're going to need to identify our file formats, including MIME type,
I am
RIME,
all
and
mixed
other
up.
pieces. Now Now we need to compile that information using
If you stop sharing, then share again. That might solve it.
Today we're going to call Roy.
Okay,
built
I'll give it a
Wikidata
go. Sorry,
without pronom.
folks.
Pronom would normally supercharge the identifier by also bringing in the pronom's binary patterns. Seal Library of Congress identifier also uses the same
I'm really sorry.
It's okay. We're formal and jolly, remember?
This is just a mess. Sorry.
Don't panic, Ross. We're rooting for you here.
All right, so we've stopped the video. Could everyone hear the video okay?
Yeah, we got the sound, but just not the picture.
Just not the picture. All right.
Did you move to a different browser? Try sharing that browser now and then play. That might work.
Yeah, let's try that. You can see that?
Yep.
All right, okay. So,
Wikidata identifier in Siegfried. Let's see how we do that. First of all, here is a typical record for portable network graphics. A format identification pattern for that looks as follows, which might be familiar to some, but not to everyone. Given thousands of records, how do we get this information from Wikidata into Siegfried? First of all, let's ask its partner toy Roy to harvest the Wikidata source. It will pull all of the definitions from Wikidata using a SPARQL query, and then we can have a look at that definitions file. Here we have a chunk of JSON that contains all of the information we're going to need to identify our file formats, including line type, URI, and other pieces. Now we need to compile that information using the Roy build command. Today we're going to call Roy build Wikidata without pronom. Pronom would normally supercharge the identifier by also bringing in the pronom's binary patterns. Library of Congress identifier also uses the same technique. We will get some feedback here on the command line, which will tell us exactly how many pieces of information we have to work with. We can see that out of 5,962 rows of data, we end up with 4,488 records. 193 have signatures, but 4 are removed because of heuristic issues. That leaves 189 identifiers that we can use and identify file formats with. Let's have a look at how that works in Siegfried. Here is a command I made earlier. Siegfried test data wikidata wd is just a link to my 2 sample files. Here we can see that Siegfried 1.9, using the identifier built today, has identified this gzip file and this Amiga Workbench icon file. We can see that both identifiers have come from the Gary Kessler's file format signature table, but other sources are available, and if they are available for your format, they will be reported in this field. We also have a link to the format record in Wikidata, which will take you there if you click on it.
all right. Thank you, everyone. Have I got enough time to finish, Stacey?
Yeah, you're good.
All right. Can you still see the slides?
Yes.
All right. So really quickly, what did you see? You saw harvest, you saw build, you saw identify, and you saw data. Importantly, we can link file format identification back to Wikidata and access the records around that. What next? We need people to use it. The integration and Wikidata. You have the power of Wikidata to edit and see that information arrive immediately back in Siegfried right now, which will bring its own issues. And so we need to develop the ecosystem around what tooling do we need, what governance do we need, what guidance do we need, and how do we communicate with each other about what we're doing in Wikidata. The collaboration was between myself, Richard, Kat, and Ewan. It started kind of last November, but has been going full-time about 7 months this year, from very wide and far parts of the world, using Sprint Review, Sprint Check-in, and I've tracked about 355 hours of my time, and the rest through everyone else, and that's just an indication about how long it takes to get this work done, and how to commit to the sort of the level of dedicated and freedom of thinking needed to achieve something like this. This is just the first iteration. More hours are needed now to shape the rest. And Kat had a couple of slides as well.
Thanks, Ross. From my screen, I'm not seeing the slides on the current one. Could you advance?
Are you able to share yours, Kat?
I don't have it pulled up right now. I was hoping to just talk from your deck.
Okay, sure. We can do that. So I'm on the Yale University Library and Easy side.
Great, thank you. So my name is Kat Thornton, and I'm part of the EASY program of work at Yale University Library. And I'm also part of Wikidata for Digital Preservation, where we curate and contribute data to Wikidata related to the domain of computing. The EASY project is interested in Siegfried reusing data from Wikidata because the EASY project has created the UVI, or the Universal Virtual Interactor. And if you have a copy of these slides, there are links here where you can learn more about EASY and learn more about the UVI. So the UVI automatically presents a digital object for interaction by a user in a software environment that represents one that would have been in use at the time the digital object was created. To fulfill this vision of UVI functionality, we need signatures for file formats as generated by the creating software application. So we plan to store these creating application signatures in Wikidata because there's no other technical registry of file format information that has plans for curating these creating application signatures. So for EASY, having Wikidata data available in Siegfried is a first step toward having more signature data from Wikidata available in the future. The work that Ross has done to extend Siegfried is also exciting for Wikidata from a data quality perspective. Ross, would you be willing to advance it one slide, please?
Yep.
Thanks. As part of the Siegfried Wikidata work, we now have a schema for file format with identification pattern in Wikidata that we can use to validate Wikidata file format data. So this schema is a SHEX schema. SHEX is an abbreviation for shape expressions, and it can be found in Wikidata's schema namespace, which is namespace E. From there, you can use this schema to see which items from Wikidata are currently in conformance with this model and which items are not in conformance with this model. And Ross and I are hoping to use this schema within Siegfried to help determine what items in Wikidata are ready for reuse by Siegfried. So in the slides, you can find a link to this schema E237 in the Wikidata schema namespace. And I also linked to a paper that gives a full background on using SHEX for validation of data from Wikidata. So now I'm going to turn it back over to Ross.
And yeah, the last thing to say is just stay tuned. There's a lot more work to come. Some of that stuff Kat has touched upon. And it's really exciting to be working on it. And I hope you'll like it as well. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Ross and Kat. That's really exciting. Since we kind of went over, I'm going to pass on the question and move on to the next presentation. So hopefully we'll have time for questions at the end for you guys. So the last presentation is from a dynamic team from the Library of Congress, Kate Murray, Trevor Owens, Ted Westervelt, Marcus Napier, and Jesse Johnson. They will be presenting policies for file format assessment at the Library of Congress.
Good day. This is Ted Westervelt from the Library of Congress. My colleagues and I are very excited to be able to talk to you a little bit about what some of the work that's been done at LC on the assessment of digital file formats. About 6 years ago, the library launched the first version of its recommended format statement. This was designed as an internal guide to enable our staff to better identify the technical characteristics of both digital and physical items to be added to the collection. They have a good deal of expertise in the intellectual value of content, and they know the business landscape they're attempting to acquire in, but especially as we acquire more digital content, it becomes increasingly important to keep that in mind, those technical characteristics, such as file formats, to ensure that what we are collecting is going to last and be usable for patrons for generations to come. So we know we're not the only place that needs this. And to that end, we've made this readily available broadly. And we've been very gratified by the degree to which this has been taken up by others and used for their purposes, which is exactly what we wanted it to be. This has also made it necessary, or driven us even more so, to review this on an annual basis to make sure it's current and up to date, and we're providing useful and reliable information for our own and for the sake of our colleagues and other institutions. After 5 years, we decided it was time for a deeper root and branch sort of revision of this, trying to make sure that the fundamental structure will last now that it's become a widely used resource. And that has resulted in what we're calling internally the RFS 2.0. And to talk about what that root and branch revision entailed, I'm going to pass it over to my colleague, Kate Murray.
Hi, everybody. So just FYI, I keep getting kicked off our network, so I may disappear into the ether. Who knows? Anyway, I have sympathies with you, Ross. So let's talk a little bit. What Ted forgot to mention was that our RFS 2.0 was just published on Monday to coincide with this meeting. So that's kind of handy. So some of the changes that have come up, we've got some new content categories to sort of better reflect what's going on in the community. And these include design in 3D, GIS, geospatial, and non-GIS cartographic and musical scores. We renamed some content categories to better express their scope. So previously we had textual work and musical compositions in the same content category. I have no idea why, but we've divided those up. And so now there's textual works and then separately musical scores. Software, electric gaming, and learning is now software and video games. Datasets and databases is now just datasets, and websites is now web archive. We made a couple of other visual changes. So we went from enumerated lists to some tables. But probably the most exciting stuff is the updated of preferred and acceptable formats across our content categories. So underpinning all of these changes was sort of a new assessment model for the recommended format statement. And we really tried to look at a level of service model for that. And this helped us define the degree to which the library itself can the Library of Congress can manage specific formats throughout their life cycle. We did this by both considering global and community criteria, as well as our local and institutional criteria. So for global and community criteria, we base that on the 7 sustainability factors at the Library of Congress Sustainability of Digital Formats website, where we do format assessment. We call them FDDs. We heard about those a couple times in earlier presentations, and I was thrilled because I also run that project. But these include disclosure, adoption, transparency, self-documentation, external dependencies, impact of patents, and technical protection mechanisms. And these can have different emphasis or important depending on what the community of practice and content type is, and they may or may not be applicable or essential for every format. And then the local and institutional factors estimate the resources available at the library, available to preserve and manage these formats. And these include things like staff experience and expertise, hardware, software, and operating system availability. And that includes the number of licenses, which we're always getting tripped up on. We have 1 license for Music XML on one guy's personal computer. I think we need to up that a little bit. And then the representation of what we already have in our collections and storage, and if we have established workflows and functionality already. So overall, this analysis has enabled us to establish a clear definition of what we considered a preferred or an acceptable format. So for preferred formats, it means it meets or exceeds benchmarks for all of the relevant sustainability factors. And for a local institutional, it means that we have the skills, experience, workflows, tools, and systems to manage and preserve these formats in our current systems with confidence. And for acceptable formats, it means it meets minimum acceptability, across our benchmarks, or it doesn't meet all of the relevant ones. And for local and institutional factors, we can manage this format at a basic level of acquisition and management, but we maybe need to up our game for the library may need to increase its capacity with some further investment. And I think it's important to note here, an acceptable format doesn't mean it's a bad format. There are plenty of really good acceptable formats. In some cases, it means that the library needs to change its own internal or step up its own game in order to better accommodate that. And the success in using this model across all of our content categories open up the possibility of adopting it to some of the other characteristics of creative works. And so we'll be looking at that a little bit more. And so underpinning all of this is what we call the matrix. And I'm going to show you a terrible slide about the matrix. So this is, and we have a link to a blank one about this, but how do we actually rank these things? So here, there's just two examples. The one in green is for PNG, and the one in yellow is for DNG. This is kind of how we answer these questions. It's a very deliberative process within the content team. And this year, we're looking at the global sustainability factors. And in this slide, we're looking at the answers for our local institutional factors. So here we say, like, for example, we may not have the current license for Photoshop, and we might need to change that internally. And then this is how it's reflected in the recommended format statement itself. You see here in line C, PNG is listed as preferred and DNG as acceptable. And I'm going to turn it over to Trevor to wrap us up.
Great. Thank you, Kate and Ted. And so just as a little bit of a wrap up, building on the great improvements that we've seen come out with the RFS and the exciting launch of the 2.0 for RSS, connects back to something we launched about this time last year, which is the Digital Collections Management Compendium. And so Jesse Johnston has joined us, who is one of who was the sort of initial editor of this, which is awesome to have him in the mix. And as some context, the idea with the compendium is that it's a resource, again, primarily for LC staff to sort of codify our practices for digital collections management and preservation in general. And so in that vein, it's an overarching context for our policy around digital collections management. So within our sort of strategic plan framework, the idea is that we want to be helping to drive momentum in our communities broadly. And so in that vein, we published it and have made it openly available as well. And so if you want to jump to the next slide, you can see an example of exactly what this looks like relating to the recommended formats statement here in the guidance under digital formats that covers how the recommended formats are enacted as policy for managing collections in the organization. If you look to the other parts of this, you can see information about inventory and custody and access. That's sort of the framework that fits all this together. And you can see in the links on the side that there's links to both the recommended format statements and the sustainability of digital formats resources, which this sort of combines together and clarifies that this is in fact enacted policy of the organization for working with collections. And so this resource is something that there's an internal editorial group that gives input on and will run on a routine revision process for. So as the RFS gets continually revised and updated, the same is true for this resource. And so folks can stay tuned and follow and see how changes in our capability and processes result in changes in our policy framework. And then lastly, as Kate had mentioned, the RFS 2.0 is published, and there's both the RFS and the DCMC are things that we continually welcome input and feedback on. They're living documents, and that's part of our concept of a policy framework, is none of these things are ever done. They're part of serious ongoing maintenance activities that we all work on together. And thank you all for this. Ted or Kate, if there's anything else you want to chime in on that I missed, don't hesitate to.
Nope, great job.
Thank you, Team LOC. That was fantastic, and I look forward to hearing more about this in the future. So it's 8 after the hour, and technically we're supposed to get out 10 after the hour, but the next session is our social time. So I'm happy to stay and listen to questions as long as you want to ask them. So do we have any questions waiting in the chat? Or does anybody want to just turn their mics on and chat?
That's a nicer way, isn't it? There weren't any questions for this last presentation, and I managed to lose there was the previous one that I lost. So if you have a question that I missed, to ask it now.
Yeah, just speak up if you have something.
Nothing from me, but I'll jump in and just say thank you everyone for your patience. I'm sorry for going over as well, Stacey. Thank you.
Oh, no problem at all, Ross. I'm glad you got it to work.
Yep, definitely worth waiting for.
Sorry. I saw a few questions about how people could contribute to the Wikidata Siegfried work. I don't know if Kat or Ross, you have something to say?
I know it's an interesting question, isn't it, Ewan? I mean, I think that final slide, I think I should have said, you know, there's like basically there's workshops in what's left to do here. There's so I don't know, we should think about how to get people together and talk about it a bit more. But it's this strange environment now where you can basically put a signature, and Tyler, I came across some of your signatures in Wikidata myself, like recently, like you can put something in Wikidata now and it will be downloaded right now with Siegfried, and you can try it out. And that's kind of where the complication lies. And I'm sure Kat will have some thoughts on that. It's like, how do we sort of bring together now the digital preservation sort of world and the Wikidata world in a compatible and sympathetic way?
What I can offer from the Wikidata side is the schema that we mentioned in the presentation
can be used as a data model for how to structure a file format identification pattern that you want to submit to Wikidata. And there are multiple tools in the Wikidata ecosystem that can basically take that schema and generate a form that you could just fill in to share your signature info with Wikidata and the world. I know talking about that in 2 seconds right now probably is not super clear, but anybody who'd like to know more about that, I'd be happy to connect you with tools and tips.
It looks like Alex has been hatching a software development co-op in the chat as well. So that's exciting.
That's a very preliminary hatching. Right now I'm at stealing eggs and sitting on them.
You got to start somewhere, chicken or the egg, right?
Yeah.
Well, if there aren't any other questions, it'd be great if everyone would like to turn on their cameras and applaud our wonderful presenters, our co-chair, Patricia, and our tech lead, Angela. Yay. Thanks to all of you for attending. And I also want to thank the amazing and wonderful folks at the DPC and the Dutch Digital Preservation Network for putting together the We Miss iPres event and giving us this chance to get together and hear what we've all been up to this year. And I guess the last thing is, yeah, please join us at the social and community get together. The Zoom link should be in the chat. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks,
have a good day or night.
Bye, Stacey.
Thanks, folks.
Everybody, thank you.
Thanks. That's been awesome.